got here is failure to communicate.
All right. So, guys, welcome to the podcast. It's the second one that we are doing.
So,
and we today we have some people from
a
the
few things I want to talk
LGBTQ
about
community.
And
I told you one of the
basically
main
just talking to them about
some issues
like
that are going
always,
on with
just
stuff
certain
right
things
now. So we're going to
pissing me
start
off.
with Melissa.
Which
Melissa,
did get my
can you just introduce
curiosity up,
yourself
to be
and tell
honest
us a little
with
bit
you.
about yourself.
Yeah. I was just it had to do
I'm
with a lot
Melissa.
of different things.
I'm 25.
But really, it just came down to
I
like we always talked about from the beginning.
don't really identify with any label.
No one really wanted to
I
have
guess
a
you'd say,
conversation. Like you
and,
say one thing, if it's
I'm a
not
recreation director.
100% agreed by
Awesome.
them,
Are you still in the military too?
then all of a sudden you're like,
I
that.
actually got out about
Right.
a year ago.
And it's
Right.
just like,
Oh, okay.
no, like
Yes,
that's
you
not
did your
what I
time.
was saying.
Mhm.
And
I even talked
Jen?
about this with I don't talk obviously
I'm Jen.
politics with
I'm 40.
you know, any younger kids or
Just tur-
couple
just
workers
turned 40, I
or
know.
teenagers, but
What
we were
the hell?
talking about social
Happy
media.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank
And
you.
one of the younger kids brought up,
I
yeah,
am
you
an
know,
office
it's just
assistant. I
it's
work
not a
for
good way to
Connecticut State Police
socialize.
in the Bureau of Identification.
No,
And I was
top.
like,
Fun job. I love
yeah.
it.
And he's like, yeah, you just you
And,
can't understand anyone. Like everything's written.
Yeah,
So
I grew up with
there's
Josh.
no
yeah, we
you
went to
know.
high school together. And I knew
It's not
Melissa.
like having a
She used to
conversation
actually
with
train at my
someone
martial
straight
arts
out.
school. You started when you were
Right.
15.
Yeah, you don't get
long time
like
ago.
tone, you
Yeah.
don't get
Wow.
Yeah, you were
inflection.
one of my
you don't
first students
get
there.
nuance.
And
Wow.
she's a blue belt in
Just
Brazilian
always
Jiu-Jitsu, so
just
she knows how to fight.
No, I
flat
didn't get my
words.
blue belt.
Yeah.
Didn't?
And if you come
No.
at it with a
I thought
mind
you were
of
pretty
this
close.
person's
Well,
an ass,
you
Tammy.
deserved it.
Tammy did.
you're going to
Yeah.
come out with
Okay.
what they said is
All right,
bad.
so
Yeah.
Do you
What?
remember John?
So
do
I
you
guess
remember
the
John
first and
Wiedenheft?
most important topic.
I know the
Do you
name.
think
I'm
Will Smith
Norwich.
should have slapped him?
Yeah, I have to.
God,
I know
no.
that name. I'm very.
God,
when
you
I
know,
remember see
As
someone's
soon as
face,
that
I'll
happened, like I
remember
wasn't
them right
watching
away.
the Oscars.
I was at my buddy
um,
John's house, and his son
but of course,
John,
I saw
who's the
something
fifth.
on Google like
Um,
right away.
Yep.
I'm sitting
And
on his couch, and I
as soon
see
as
a
I saw
mouse
it, I was
pad,
like, "This
and
is
you're
going to
on it,
become a
kneeling
political
down
thing.
with little John, and I'm like,
People are going to," and I
"Holy shit,
saw
went
it
to-
right away. I'm
went to
like,
high school with this kid."
Fox
that's when I
News
found out you
clips,
were
like,
a
"Oh, you
karate
know,
instructor.
the
And that
left
was
is taking
a
Will
really long
Smith's
time
side.
ago.
They
Yeah,
believe
yeah, I
in,
know. It's been a long
in,
time.
you know,
He's drinking
violence."
age now.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
Jesus, can
I
we
know.
just have a thing
All right, so
that's
Right.
not political?
basically, what I wanted to
Right.
start out with
Right.
too was just
But yeah, that
kind of
that
getting your
whole thing, I was
experience
just like,
because
which,
you know there is a
made me
age
think-
difference, and we grew up in
you know,
different times. So
obviously
kind of your
we had the whole
experience
thing on-
coming up.
we talk
um,
about white
I know
privilege, and I
personally
believe in it,
people
but
I know
you know who has the most
coming up, they
privilege in the
didn't have
world?
the easiest
Rich,
time,
famous people.
Right.
and they
Oh.
went through some tough things.
Because if that was me or
I've
you,
heard about
we'd be in
the newer
handcuffs.
generation being much
Um,
better with that. But
Probably
again,
before
I
we slapped him.
experienced it.
We would have
So,
been tackled
Melissa,
and
what was your
arrested
experience
before it
coming
even
up?
happened.
Exactly.
So it's
But we're
just
really
two
honestly
commoners, you know?
crazy because
But yeah,
up
everyone
until
talks about it. I mean,
Sunday,
every single
like,
time
my
I
father
go to Yahoo
never-
to go into my email,
well, all right, let me just
I
backtrack
I
here.
see the headline. I'm like, man, like,
I don't understand
so
why it's a big
my
deal. Like,
father never
it's a
the
big
way
deal.
really
it
Like,
became a
accepted
big deal.
yeah,
the LGBT
Like, it
was a big
community,
deal,
so that was
but-
always kind of hard for
yeah,
me.
it's a big deal. But at the same time, it's
accepting
like, well, there's
myself
other
and,
more important stuff
figuring
that should
that out.
probably be front
And my
page.
mom, she was always,
Right.
more
Right.
understanding.
This is something
so,
that, yes, you
but
can
up
kind of
until recently,
dig
like I
into it and
had
deal with that. But like you said, it explodes.
a good
into this
time with my
political thing
family
now
growing
that
up with
just pushes us further
me
apart
being
when none of it
who
is
I
true.
am, and
Yeah. Yeah.
Why are we doing this
recently
again?
that just totally
So-
blew up, and
So,
I
one thing
no
that I
longer,
saw
like, in contact
when
with
I
my
said
family.
making
So,
me mad
like, it's like
was, you know,
it's
I always
crazy,
talk
so.
about
Yeah,
how
that's. I'm sorry to
politics
hear
is
that.
really
I actually,
like it's
I was
just
actually
made people
expecting to hear
so
kind of the opposite. That
one-sided on everything.
you know,
like everything
it's-
has to be
it's-
like,
I don't know. I
oh,
mean,
you know,
I've
you
never
said
experienced it.
something
I have
about
two
this person
daughters,
that was
but I
positive.
mean, I
I
can see
hate.
myself
Yeah.
caring.
And I was
either way.
I,
But again, that's
I
just
followed
me.
this guy on
That's again why
Instagram.
we're talking about it. But I'm
and
sorry you
he
have to
won the
go through
Congressional
that.
Medal of Honor. His
yeah,
name is
yeah. I mean,
I
it
forget
hurts,
his name
but
right now.
I'm just trying to be strong, and
Yeah.
I
that a-
have good support systems.
Is he a politician?
No,
Clifford is
he's
down around.
he won the Congressional Medal of Honor.
Is that a cultural thing?
He's the
your
youngest
dad?
recipient ever. to win
I would
the
say yes.
Congressional
He
Medal of
grew
Honor.
up in Louisiana.
And
he
I
has
have him on
very,
Instagram, so I forget his first name. His handle
I
is
guess
Chicks Dig Scars.
what,
Okay.
Uh,
He's set in his
Kyle
ways.
Carpenter.
Yeah, very
Kyle
set in his
Carpenter.
ways. Very, very set in his
And
ways, which I obviously just found out.
I
'cause
followed him ever
up
since I
until
heard
now,
the story.
like the past 4 years,
he
it was
was in
great with
Afghanistan
me,
in
my partner.
2010,
Like you
and
would
he
have
won the
never.
Congressional Medal
My
of Honor,
family was
youngest
so
person ever.
flabbergasted
He
at
threw
how great
himself
his
on a grenade
relationship was with my partner.
Jesus.
to save
And
him,
up
to
until
save the
recently,
other
like, I
guy
actually
who was with him
brought
in the
up
bunker, or they were on a
situations
roof.
going on in the
Um,
world, and that
3
just
years
kind
he was
of
in the
triggered him,
hospital, he
and
had
it sent him
surgeries, he
all the
like
way back to
his whole face is reconstructed
nope.
down
I
here,
really
lost
don't
an
accept
eye.
you.
Anyway,
Wow.
like, you know, a war hero,
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
and that's one of the reasons
And,
like doing this podcast too.
he
Like,
never
I think
really-
that
he
there's
never
a
gets
lot of
put-
stuff that
which is another thing I like about him. Like, he
everything,
just posts
everything
stuff about
together,
his life.
and you can put the pandemic on top of it. Where I
But
think
every
people are
once in
like,
a while, he'll
we tend
like,
to
I
go
don't
back
know,
to what
I
we
can't even
know.
tell you if he's a
It's a crazy time
more
right
Democrat
now,
or
and
more Republican, because he
you
doesn't.
know, like we just had this.
I did read
eclipse
somewhere
that's
once
just,
that
like,
he was backing like Jeb
totally
Bush in 2016.
making everybody
but,
go
Okay.
through this intense
anyway,
time. I don't know. if you pay
recently,
attention
one
to
of
the
his recent
planets and all.
pictures,
Like
Yeah.
it's like
he
a
was at
whole.
the
Yeah, there's like some crazy
uh,
stuff going on right now, right? With like
Congressional
it's
Medal of
just like
Mercury
Honor
and yeah.
museum
time,
they're making.
so
Okay.
Maybe
And
I
Clinton
never believed in that stuff. Who
George
knows?
W.
I mean,
and
Yeah.
Obama
Kinda-
donated
it's
money.
kind of maybe it is true.
So in the
Well,
post,
Jen,
it
what about
shows
your
him,
experience coming up?
shaking the hand of George
So,
Bush, and he says,
I
"Oh,
didn't
thank
come
you,
out until
President
after high
Clinton,
school.
President
but
Bush,
My
President
experience
Obama
of
for
people that
donating
were out
money
in high
to this
school
museum."
is I had a
Mhm.
really
You
good
know,
friend,
thank you
and
very
she
much.
was a
Just
year behind
basic.
us. She came out in seventh
And
grade.
oh man, people
full
were like,
out,
"What about your President
I'm a
Trump?
lesbian.
Like, how
This
dare
is
you?
my
I'm
girlfriend,"
unfollowing you.
and
Like,
didn't
you're a traitor."
care
Like,
if anybody had an issue with it.
jeez.
And then we had another
I'm
friend
like,
who was in our class.
I mean, and people,
So you go from
people
a
who
girl
like
and a
actually
guy
thought
who had
stuff
two
through
completely
pointed
different
out, like,
experiences where
one,
he got picked
Trump
on,
didn't give money,
and he
but
had some
also
tough times.
apparently,
Yeah,
yeah,
me.
and you know,
I mean, I guess
I
everybody
personally
kind of
don't
knew
think
I
he
was
probably
gay,
would have anyway.
except for
But
me. I mean, I knew I liked
regardless,
people. I knew I had crushes
he
on people, but I had crushes on boys
if
too.
you're
Like, I
a
just had no idea.
a
I didn't
president
come
that's
out
running right
till
now or
after I
can run
graduated.
again,
When I came out,
you can't give money
to my
because they don't want
mom,
it to be political.
she's
Right.
like,
So-
"Yeah,
Makes
I
sense.
know."
Makes sense.
And
Yeah.
my
So
stepdad
really, again, they're arguing about nothing. Like,
had a different
it's not even
reaction.
something that
He's
should be
fine
on
now,
the table.
but he
And
there was some
other
stuff
people
going
are
on at
pointing
home. I
out,
was
like, he's
18 or
not saying
19,
he
and
agrees with
I think he
who he
bounded out of bed
agrees
one
with
night at
political.
me
He's
and
just
got in my
saying,
face.
"Thank you for
And
donating
that was really
money
the only
to this
negative,
cause."
nasty
That's
thing
it.
about it.
Right.
And
Just like you could thank
within a
100
couple
other
weeks, he
people for
was
doing the
fine.
same thing.
I think he just
Yeah.
needed to get over
And
his
mostly, I don't go
initial
down that rabbit
prejudice
hole.
toward
I see
everything.
it,
But
but
I have
I
two
did
younger
this time.
brothers. My middle
And
brother's gay. He came out to me
yeah,
when he was in
exactly.
sixth
I
grade. And
respect
he's
the guy, but
6 years
also I'm
younger
like,
than me.
you know,
And I
and
was
then
shocked.
some of
I
them
was
were
like,
just
"Do you really need
trolls.
to put
You
it?"
know,
Because
the
I don't
ones
love
that
labels either, Melissa.
don't even show their
Like, "Do you really need
picture.
to put a label on it, like on your shirt?" Now we all knew
But
when
there
he
was a
was in
decent
second
amount of
grade
them who were
that
just regular
he
people.
was for sure gay,
And
but
I'm
I
like,
didn't feel like he
that's
needed
what
at that
scares me.
time in the
Mhm.
90s to
Like,
be putting a
you know,
label on himself
you're gonna have
if he
people who
didn't need
just
to be.
you're gonna have crazies
Um,
anywhere,
but my fear for
and you're
that
gonna have
was just
people who just do stuff on
it
the
wasn't
internet
how
because
our
they're
family
bored.
would react. It was
But
how he
when
was going to go through
real
school for the
people start
next
getting that kind
6
of
years that he
mindset,
had left
it
till he graduated
that's
high
what
school.
scares me.
So
Game
I didn't
over.
come out until after I had,
Mhm.
you
And
know, a couple of
two
scary
things
things
to that.
later in life.
First
But
one is
I didn't really have an
um,
awful,
I
horrible
would,
experience.
well, I
like
don't know how
some
you
people
stand
did.
on that in a wider sense,
But
but
and
I
we grew up in
see
a
that
really
coming from,
undiverse town. Like,
and I kind of
it's a pretty
write the
white town. It was a
narrative that
pretty blue collar town.
people who support
Um,
Trump are now
So
acting like they're in a
I guess everything could have been worse
and
for
they can't
everybody.
see reality for what it is. And I know
But it also could
you
have been
say,
better
you know,
for
it happens on
some
both
people.
sides.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and I think I know the person you're talking
for
about,
instance,
the mutual friend that we had.
You do.
watching political
Yeah, he went
TikTok, which I
through
shouldn't. But
Just
it's a
horrible
it's
things.
a,
And
what do they call it?
yeah,
guilty
it-
pleasure.
it's just
Guilty
tough, and I
pleasure.
see that. But
Yeah.
then,
And
you know, that's why I hope,
and
like,
this one
you know,
girl
and I
who's
hear
very,
from
very
kids in this
popular was like,
generation
"Where
who are
are
in high
your
school
Build
now
Back Better?
that,
Where are
you know,
your Joe
people
Biden?"
care less about
And
that.
it's just
And
like,
I would hope so, but
this
I
is
mean, I
what it
think
is
that
now.
that's something that
Yeah.
people who are
All it
not
is
straight
showing
can't
your
really
allegiance,
realize.
and
Like,
it ain't about
we're never
anything
worried. Like,
anymore.
man, if I tell
Yeah.
people about this,
Well,
I'm going to get ridiculed.
Yes, I
Like,
actually just had this conversation conversation
Never had
with
to worry
somebody the
about
other
that.
day,
You
I
know,
will
um,
say,
and I personally
like,
do
I
believe
lived in
that
Louisiana
we.
when
I don't even want to use the word
was
cult-like
10 to
because I,
14.
in my
And
opinion, on the
down
left, it's less
there, like,
cult-like and more just
It
like,
wasn't really
okay,
talked
we're
about,
following the
like, we
narrative.
liked girls. Like,
Whether we
no,
agree
and
with it
I
or not,
had,
sometimes
oh my
it's
God,
just the
like,
idea.
crushes on
Man, I
girls,
hate that
like,
side so much.
Like I had the
that,
like,
I'm
my
just
close
gonna stick with
friends, like
this.
I had a biggest
Mhm.
crush on her
Even if
sister,
I don't
and
agree
like
with
their
what they
family
said
knew
that one time,
they
I'm
were
just gonna
cool with
like
it, you
pretend
know.
I did.
But
Mhm.
like,
But yes,
other than that, like no one really talked about
when it comes
it.
to the flags, like
It
I've had
wasn't.
people
And
say
then
that
when
to
I
me,
moved
like,
up to
oh,
Connecticut,
you know,
and obviously my family, they didn't talk about
what
it.
makes you think
When I moved up to Connecticut,
election
and I went to
wasn't
high
rigged?
school
Like,
here,
you
there was
see
a
Trump flags
GSA,
everywhere. You
there
never
was
see
True
Biden
Colors.
flags.
I
I'm
right
like,
across the street at
that's
UConn. Like I went to USC,
he's not worshipped.
and
Like
Yeah.
nobody.
I was like, oh
no
my God, I
politician
could
should
be
be
myself. Like
worshipped
I was like,
that, in
yeah,
my
I'm
Right.
bisexual.
Right.
Like when you,
You know,
when
I
you're,
was just waving my flag around, like did not care,
I mean,
and just felt so great. Well,
I go
outside
to the
of
point
home,
where like
you know,
Right.
I don't
So
think anyone's bad. for
that
doing
was
it.
really
when I
cool
see people
because
wearing like
there was
you know,
this sense of
having
like
Brady posters
how
all
a
over,
group had
unless they're little
belonged,
kids,
you know.
Right.
Yeah.
that's-
wearing Brady's
funny
thing, having
because
like,
I went to Eastern
okay, like
for a semester and a little
again,
bit,
you think
and
differently.
that's where I came
or
out, and
differently
that's
than me.
where
Yeah.
we had
But
our.
a political
It
person, like
wasn't LGBTQ
having it where it's
at
just
that
like,
point.
no,
it was
we're standing
LGBT
behind you no
club,
matter what.
and we
Right.
did so many fun
It's
things,
scary,
and I
and
met so many people
I
from
hate
UConn at the
using
same
the whole
time. So
Nazi thing, but
and
everyone
True
points
Colors
out,
is
like,
an
you
awesome
know, they
organization.
started getting the flag and the
So I
swastika.
think
and
as country as that part
People
of the
rally
state
behind
is,
it, and
I
people
think
start
you kind of
forgetting what
at the same
they're
time with
thinking
UConn
and
and
start
Eastern and
buying
all
the
the diversity
narratives.
between
And
those two
Yep.
schools, I think you
Well,
kind of
when I
probably
went
lucked
to
out in
Florida
that
to meet your parents, I
aspect, maybe,
visited
of
a guy who
meeting some
Yeah,
really
I-
awesome people.
Yeah.
when I went through boot camp.
Well, I think it depends on the area too.
I hadn't seen him since boot
Sometimes-
camp.
I mean,
it was really cool
you know,
to
I
catch
mean,
up with him.
there's
And
I'll
of
be
course,
in one
he's from
town in
Georgia,
Norwich
like,
and then over
you know,
in,
I
like,
don't
East
think he's
Haddam,
super
like,
political on a lot of
I
stuff.
literally
but
just saw this
we-
yesterday.
we mentioned
East
something
Haddam walking
about,
around with the Confederate
a little
flag.
bit about politics,
sure.
and I said,
Yeah.
yeah, you know,
Like, and I was like,
yeah, in East
it's kind
Haddam,
of weird
where I
that like,
live, like,
you,
there's
I
Trump
actually seen a
flags
decent amount
everywhere.
East Haddam, and I'm like,
and he's like,
one,
really? He's like,
you're
you're in
in
the
East Haddam,
Northeast,
Connecticut.
and I
Like,
said, yeah. He's
two,
like,
like you wouldn't.
he
think
literally
that, like,
thought, and I
He didn't
get
get
it.
beat up.
a couple
I get
towns
it.
over.
He's
It's
like, I
totally
thought
different.
everyone
You know,
Right.
just the way it's
Virginia
like,
up
it's
was
right.
all
weird.
Democrat.
Or
It,
who
Right.
it
knows?
is.
And I'm like, no,
It is
Not at
interesting.
all.
Not at
Like,
all.
And
Not at
even-
all.
even if you go,
Yeah.
but
eyes, like the
you know, we
the-
think,
the towns
and
can be
another
so
thing, I
sexual.
said this to Lisa
Yeah.
when we went,
And I mean,
to all the different
Melissa,
places.
you
It was
know
still
that
when
I mean,
COVID
we talked when you
was
were
had
training
some
martial arts.
decent
I have family
regulations.
from Louisiana. My
Mhm.
mom's from Louisiana.
And
you met my
everyone was
mom.
saying, "Oh, Florida's
And,
relaxed."
And yeah, it's
there was more businesses.
we
that
went
said
there
you
and
have to wear
visited,
masks here than in Connecticut. That I saw.
3 years ago. We took
Yeah.
the girls down. We did
'Cause
a
I-
road trip down there.
Yeah,
Like for
and
2 weeks.
we were in.
and,
We went to the
I told my wife going
Titanic
down. I was like,
Museum.
"This is a very
It was
different
one of
world."
the first things we did,
It
Just
is.
know
and we didn't
like,
wear our masks.
there's
'cause
certain
on
things
the way down
and the
there,
things
Lisa had
you
all
said
the
about
masks
don't
on,
talk
and
about it. I
and
noticed that.
me,
Like
And I
that's
was like,
how
it's Florida.
like
It doesn't
they just don't
Right,
deal
right,
with things
right.
that are
matter.
uncomfortable.
And halfway through,
Yeah.
she's like, "We're the only
And-
ones in here without
I don't know.
masks on."
Maybe in
I was
some
like, oh.
situations,
And then
can see how that
we
could
put them
help.
on because I
Yeah,
was like, I don't want to
it's-
be.
I don't know,
person
but again,
without it.
and that's
Right.
the thing. Like,
Like you
But
I don't
forget that
agree with
Florida
that stuff,
was
but
Yeah.
what a 6-point.
the more
win
I
for
can
Trump.
talk to
It
people
wasn't
about
a
why you
blowout.
feel
It was
like, well, why do you feel that
46%
way?
of the people
Maybe the
voted the other way,
understanding of
and you
Yeah.
forget that.
bringing
And
people out.
what it really
And
opened my
people
eyes to
understand,
was
you know? I always
that,
go off the thing that if I yell at someone who doesn't think
we
like
hear
me,
stuff about
there's no way they're going to listen
on the news.
But if
This
I
is the way it is here.
talk
This
to
is
them,
the way
there's
it
a
is there. But
possibility
unless
I
you
might
really
change
go there,
Mhm.
you don't
Right.
really
you know,
know.
and it's like,
Right.
you know,
They
know,
I don't know. And sometimes it's
Yeah,
fun to yell. at
people from other
Mostly it's
countries,
just,
when
you
they
know,
think
I
of
don't
America,
think-
they think
it's
LA
like, well,
and New York.
It's just a lost
Right.
cause.
It's like,
Right.
that's
Mhm.
not
Now,
what America is.
The next thing I
Right.
wanted to talk about
Right.
was
Yeah.
I always-
absolutely.
as far
I
as
always said that to
the
Lisa. I
community
was like,
goes,
if
do you
we,
think
if I ever go
things
to another
are
country,
getting
I don't want to
better?
go
Do
to
you
the
like
city of
the
that
things
country.
that are
I want to go
happening?
to
Do
the
you
Colchester
dislike some of it?
or
I
East
actually went to my
Haddam
first
of
Pride
China
parade
or
last year.
Australia or wherever, to see what it's really like.
I went last year.
Not
Right.
just
Yeah, well,
what you see on TV.
we had some people around the
Right.
school and stuff,
Right.
and I was like, you know, that was back when, and and people
second
were
thing I was
like,
going
see
to
all this stuff on TV, and I'm like, I need to go here for
I
myself.
was at a
because
friend's
I just
house,
don't believe the news. I'm
and
like, and it was like a regular. It's just a parade.
we politically don't
Like everyone
agree.
makes it like, oh, you're going
And
to see
so
all these.
they make
Like,
kind of
no.
a pact not to be
You wanna see
political,
some,
but it
crazy
always
parade,
turns
go
that
to,
way no
like,
matter what.
Go to Mardi Gras. Like,
Yeah,
And
go to Mardi Gras. Go
the
to
fight revolved around, and
what's
luckily
that?
there
That
was his kid
motorcycle
was there.
convention they do out in the
'Cause him
Midwest.
and his
like,
wife were
wanna see some-
we were having the
Yeah.
disagreement, and I'm like, I'm
My
trying
friend
to explain this
bartended
to
there
you.
for summer.
I'm
Well,
agreeing
that's the
with
thing you were hearing is that
and they were fighting
oh,
with
well,
me, and he kept
you know,
saying,
when you go to
"He's
these, you see
trying to
everything so
agree with you,
sexualized.
you
It's like,
won't let
yeah,
him."
go to that
Because of the
that Harley
divide
Davidson
that
one, and all the
they
girls
just
are wearing almost
pigeonholed
nothing.
me into
It's the
a
same
category.
thing.
And I'm like,
it's so funny that you bring that up because my friend
I had to say it
Carrie
12
actually
times.
bartended
It's like
there.
they were still
and
yelling at me.
when
I'm
they
like,
had the show. Was it Full Throttle?
finally, I'm
Full
like,
Throttle,
I-
right?
I
We were
just
actually
can't.
just talking
I
about this
I
on
don't know
Wednesday.
what to do.
We all went
There's
out for
just
brunch
nothing
Sunday and
else
we
I
went to
can
the
say.
vineyard and we were talking
I
about
had
her
that
experience
same
there.
thing happen on
And
many
yeah, she had to
things,
go
but one
buy
I can
Skippy
think of
little
is
like bathing suits and
gun
outfits and stuff.
control
But
or
Mhm.
guns.
she said,
I
the
actually
way they
just got
portray
my
stuff on the
pistol
show
permit,
is it seems like it's a party all the
a
time.
week and a
She's
half
like, it
ago,
is a party
finally.
all the time. She's like, but it's very
And
controlled.
I put
She's
something
like,
on
the
Facebook because I was saying,
bouncers,
like, it's
everything
not
is
as
so
easy as
controlled,
people make it
but what you
out.
see on TV
And
is
it's
those
not.
few
I mean, you have to
moments
go
of
through the loopholes. I don't know
craziness
what
that
it is in
Exactly.
other states.
are not the reality
yeah.
of all
But
of it.
regardless of that,
And you would see that on some like the real
Years
reason I was
ago,
like, and again, I didn't
on
believe it to
Facebook,
begin with.
it
but
was
I'm like,
having a
well,
conversation with a guy I
is
knew
the
from a
one
long
where you see
time
like
ago. and
younger kids
know,
around people who are wearing
through
extra
martial
nothing
arts
and stuff
training,
like
and,
that.
and we
Like
didn't
first
really
off,
talk, but
if you know
I-
that things are going
I
to be
said,
like
"Oh
that, like,
no,
I
you
wouldn't
know,
bring my
I'm for
girls
people
to a
owning
biker
guns,
route.
but I wouldn't be
Right.
against
Like,
trying
yeah,
to
they're
find
going to
ways
see stuff like
and
no.
things that
Actually,
you have
speaking
to
of Mardi
do
Gras,
to keep it out of
when
the
I was
hands
in
of
sixth
people
grade,
who shouldn't.
we went to New Orleans. and
Whether
we went
that's
through French
training more
Quarters, and
consistently,
my parents about half we were in, and they're like,
re-upping
how
and
do we
having
get
to
out
do
of
the
here?
course
Like,
every couple of years,
they were like,
or whatever.
we should not have brought our kids in here. And I was seeing
It would
Unless
all,
you've,
all
like,
have to be the law, but
lived. I don't know. I mean,
or
it's just
whatever
like a
law
different culture
they
down there. Like
impose.
that's just like
but he
you grow
right
up
away
kind
he's
of
like,
seeing. Like
you're
I've
anti-gun,
seen that. Like I
and I'm like, what
grew
are you
up
talking
going to
about?
Mardi Gras
I have guns.
ever since I was little.
Right?
So
That doesn't make
I've
any
always kind of like,
sense.
You're saying
my
I'm
parents didn't take me
anti-gun.
to Bourbon
I
Street,
literally go to the point
obviously
where
as a child.
if you
But
pass it, I don't care if you have a fully
even in the
automatic.
most family-oriented places, you're
just
gonna
hey,
see
what can we
some
do
sexualized
if people
things.
are showing
like,
signs?
or, it just happens. Like, you know what I mean?
But right
So-
away it was just
and you
I'm saying something.
but they make it seem
oh,
like
maybe
it's
gun.
like,
maybe
oh,
we
well,
can do
it's
this.
only
But yeah,
happening there.
I
It's like,
totally
well, no,
agree with
that's
people's right to
just
have guns.
happening there.
You're
with them.
anti-gun
Like,
because you
they're
don't
probably like,
just
why
say
is someone bringing their kid?
everyone
here?
should be
Like,
strapped at all
they know,
times.
Right.
And
but
you should
all
just
parades
everybody
have
should be
things
walking
like
around with
that.
a rocket
All
launcher.
parades for adults
Yeah.
have things
Yeah.
like that. It's just
But
that
yeah,
Isn't
they
it
did
funny?
did
that.
Like,
When
I'm
I went
trying
in
to
Middletown,
agree
and it
with
was
you. You won't
just
even let me
regular-
agree with you.
Yeah.
Like that's
how
that
most
was
of them
pretty
are. I've
eye-opening
never
to
been
me. It
to
was like,
a
I
pride
didn't
event.
realize
I've been
that I
at
can't
P-Town
even
a bunch of
agree with
times. I mean,
someone anymore.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went to
Because of
P-Town
the
it
way
was
you see-
Abby and her family.
That's another thing
summer
that got
going
me
into
really
in
pissed
the
off. But
sophomore
before
year.
I say that one,
And it was
I'm
my
going to tell you
first time
a
and
story
walking down the
when I was
street at,
going to get my
doesn't matter what time
final
of day
the final
it is in
license for the
P-Town,
gun.
you're probably going to see a drag queen. But I remember
Because the guy
walking down the
behind
street
me
with
started
Abby,
talking to
and
me,
it's when I was
and
still liked guys.
seemed like a
And
nice guy.
we
But
would
right
both
away,
like
I was like,
flip our heads and be like,
great.
oh, he's holding hands with another guy. Or you see a drag
Really
queen.
like
I was
started
like,
like,
that's
oh yeah,
great.
this blah blah blah. Started
Nothing
talking about how
crazy
COVID
happens.
was
There's
fake.
nothing that's obscene or
You know,
out of
anyone
line
who
for a
got
kid to see.
the vaccine is going to get a
The
heart
people
attack.
that have a problem with that
I'm
are the
like,
people that don't know how to
shit.
have
Like,
that conversation
okay,
with their kids.
how long is
Going
this
back to
gonna
what you
take?
said before, is
Yeah. Yep.
But he
or-
was
or
from
Melissa
another
said
country. He
they
was
don't
from
talk about it. Well, that's part of the problem, and I know Josh, you didn't want to get into the stuff that's
Man,
going on now,
I
but
forget.
it all
It was some
intertwines
European
with each
country.
other.
Yeah.
If we don't talk about
and
it,
it was a socialist country.
then
How
we're never going to fix it.
And
how do you fix it, and
he
how
was
do
like,
you
"Oh yeah,
even
no, oh yeah,
begin
this
to
country,
understand
socialism.
your own
I came from
feelings
a
towards
socialism
it?
country,
Right.
socialist country.
I
Everyone
actually
wants to leave.
one thing I
again,
always thought about when
Just the way he was
you'd
talking,
hear that,
I
like,
wasn't
oh, you know,
taking anything
the
seriously.
gay
But
community,
I
like, they're
will
more, like,
say,
well,
whenever I
if you
talk
really
to
think
people who
about
are
it,
immigrants,
even if they were like they're, and I'm
they
talking about
really they're
gay,
like going to the right.
like two guys, like
Mhm.
they're guys,
And I think it's just one of those things
like I mean, guys
you know,
are known
again,
for being
everything's
more
gotten lost.
you
Everyone
know,
just thinks if you're for any
crazy about that
left-leaning
stuff. Like,
policies,
yeah,
you must
now you have two guys.
be
Like, it's just
100%
it has nothing to
against
do with
freedom, against all
them.
that
It's
stuff.
just
It's like,
men.
man,
You might as well just say
not
it's men like that, you know.
Whatever the heck
But I
that
know
means.
everyone's
I'm still trying to
different, but
figure out
it's-
what that even means.
I don't think people
It's
take
such a
everything
general
into
statement of
context
something that
in-
doesn't even.
into context,
or
with,
even right-leaning
you
stuff.
know,
Like,
different things
you know, I hear people say sometimes,
Change
"Oh, right-wingers, they're all religious."
on some
Like,
levels.
I know plenty
you
of
know?
right-wingers
So
who
people are
I've never asked them,
offended
but I
very
would guess
easily.
they're probably
I'm not.
atheists. And
There's things to
or
lot
just
looked at
like,
me. You have to be,
non-denominational,
you pretty much have to be a
or,
real piece of
you know,
shit to look at me.
casual
And
Christians or casual
people have their
Muslims
opinions.
or casual
it's
Jews.
changing those
Yeah.
opinions that
They're
are
not fundamentalist, right?
that can be
Mm.
changed.
So the
that are gonna
other
make the
thing
difference.
that
It's,
got me
and the
going,
ones
it,
you think
it
can't
got me
be
going
changed
more because it was
are
a
the ones
little
that
bit
really
on a
make the
personal
difference.
level, like not
Yeah.
too much, but
Yep.
Like Melissa,
Mhm.
Because I knew
I
the
don't think
person
this thing with your
decently.
family is gonna last.
Mhm.
and also
I
the way
I
that
know
they
it's new
just
and it's
like
fresh and it's
kind of
upsetting,
put me
but
down. So
when it comes down to it,
obviously, a lot of people have
it's your
been
dad,
talking about
and
the
he's gonna
swimmer,
love you no matter what. He just
the
needs to get over his
transgender
own
swimmer.
shit.
Yep. Yep.
That's what I told him.
And he will. It might take a little bit, but he
we
will.
talked about this a little bit, I think,
Especially since
when
you said he accepted it before.
I was
and
going
stuff
over
like
like
that. Showed you that
the
maybe
idea
just-
that
I
someone
don't
who's
know. It
born
was just like a
biologically male
eruption
and then
of
transitions to
emotions and
female
stuff. But
and
Jen,
then
you
wants
brought
to
up a
compete.
really good point, which
I have a problem
kind
with
of the
that
whole idea with
unless
this podcast is that
doctors prove, okay, once
you
you're
get
on
people talking
hormone
and
therapy for
and
this long and you have this
maybe you can change
this
one
amount of
person's
testosterone
mind.
in your body, your body's
There's a
changed.
story I've been telling recently.
I mean,
that
I'm not
I
against
watch
it
Joe Rogan's
for, like,
podcast a lot.
the reason,
I
like,
think it's awesome.
oh, well, I
And
just
he's a
don't
martial
want
artist
competing,
too. But
it's
he had a
is this
guy
fair
on
to
who was a black
which is the
musician,
same reason, hey,
and he
in
was
guy
known
sports,
for, I forget the guy's name now,
Well,
but he was
you're not
known
allowed to
for
take testosterone
converting many
because it gives
people
you
from
an
the
advantage.
KKK out
not
of
that I
that,
disagree with it.
group.
It's just I think that there
And
hasn't
the
been
whole
enough
point was
study
he
about
befriended
when's
them.
the
He started
perfect
talking
time
to him, and
to make that
obviously he got a lot of
transition
flack.
and
Like,
let
why would you talk
people
to those
start
horrible
competing.
people? And his whole thing is,
So of course,
if I
someone
can talk to
who I
1,000 of
know,
them and change the
posted
minds
something
of
and
10,
it tends to be all
that's
positive,
better than if I
like,
just
oh,
hated them.
the feelings
just
kind
said,
of thing, which I
I
get
hate you,
because
and
I
like,
think people who
I
do
have
this
more
are
of a
nice
chance of
people,
making the situation
and their main
better.
goal is
And
I want people to
which
be
is
able
like,
to do what they
I think
want
that like a lot of
and not
situations
feel
that
like
are
they
going
can't.
on now, like,
But
yeah,
anyway,
there's people
so
who
I wrote
very
like,
greatly
you know,
disagree with, and I wouldn't want to be.
if the
friends.
majority of doctors after this
But if
long
I just say you're
it, I would
stupid
be
and I
for
hate
it,
you,
but I do
there's
question,
no chance of
hey,
anyone
does
coming
this
together
person
on
have an
anything.
advantage now?
Right.
And I went as far to
But
say,
Melissa, do you?
I do
Is there
think
anything
that
that you
people
would
who
like to see
just say,
get
hey,
better
let
in the
everyone
community,
compete where they
or
want to compete.
Are you happy with the way things are progressing?
They're not doing it because they're bad
When you say
people. They're doing it because
community,
they're
like,
good
do you
people.
mean like
They're doing it
The
because they want
LGBT
people to.
community, like
They don't want to discriminate against
Connecticut
anyone
or
and
like
make
the
people feel
world,
like
That's
they
actually a
don't
really
belong.
good question because, and
But
I
I
might as well
also
bring this up
feel,
now.
well,
I
if
don't
you
know
have
how
a
to address
physical
it
advantage
either.
over the other.
Like,
I mean, we could hit
however
all
many
three.
people
Like
that
we could
are
talk about
competing in your
locally, I
division, then,
think,
well, I also have
and
to
then
yeah,
worry about
that's
their
totally
the
fine.
world.
Yeah.
I
But
think
anyway,
like locally,
right away, someone
feel
who
like,
I
like
know.
you said before,
I mean,
there's
when I say known, like
pockets in
grew up with
our
my
rural
family.
areas of Connecticut
Right?
that
Their dad
seem to
knew my
have
dad and
these,
grew up with my dad. It's like, right away was
group influenced
I have to
ideas
tell
and
my
stuff like
kid
that.
their
that
kid
just
was
seem to
transgender,
radiate.
that there's people
And,
like you in the world.
But
who
I mean, maybe
who
I
will
don't know,
keep
like
them from
Yukon
doing
area, I
things
hit the
they love.
jackpot here because you do have that
You're a
welcoming
teacher and a
aspect, and you have
mentor.
all
Do your
those
students
different
know what
points
kind
of
of person you
contact
are?
in regards to the LGBT
Like,
community. So
When you say
And I
that wasn't much
literally
of a
was
here,
personal
like,
attack, that was a big
there
time personal
are
attack.
a lot of
yeah. And I was like,
positives.
look, I really don't want to
locally
talk to
in
you if you're going
this
to talk. Like,
area
this is
where
really
we
rude.
are,
Like, I
but
don't want to talk to you at all if this is
Right.
what you're going to do.
I don't know. They passed the law
Now, the more I
about
thought about it,
not being able to fire
again,
someone
maybe
for being LGBT.
the person was angry
so
because
Yeah,
they
yeah,
have a
that's
child who's
something I wanted to
transgender, and
that
they were
is
feeling
really awesome,
attacked
and I
a little
think that
bit.
speaks a little bit about where we are today.
But at the same time, I'm like,
compared
well,
to
I
maybe
never said
obviously
anything
the
like,
90s,
oh, you know,
you know.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
you know, like you hear a lot of
my
oh,
partner,
you know,
she's
hell with
she was
these
born in
people.
88, she's
They're just a
32,
guy in a
so
woman's body,
she
and
had a little bit
or
of
vice versa, a
early
woman in a
2000s.
guy's body.
Yeah.
kind of-
Like, I just want to, I want it to be
back
fair
in the
for
50s
everyone.
and like when my parents were, how tough it would have been.
But yeah, just like that, it's like,
But,
man,
oh,
like,
Jen,
can
so
we
what
even have
about
a
you, Jen?
conversation about this?
Any
Or
thoughts
is it
on it?
just agree with me?
So much has come
and if
so
you
far.
don't,
I remember the
then
Millennium
screw you.
March.
Yeah, I
Marching.
you know,
at,
I'll bring back to my point.
I
I
was
was trying
20.
to agree with my
it was
friend, and he
2000.
wouldn't even let me agree with him.
The Millennium
And
March
it just
in
got to the
DC.
point where
From
it
Eastern, we
just
all took
drives
a
me
bus
crazy
down,
because it's like we
a
can't
full
have
bus,
a
and it was
nuanced,
crazy. It
complex,
was fun.
interesting conversation
Margaret
and
Cho,
debate
who is
without
doesn't really
pigeonholing
place a
everybody
label on
into the
herself
corner
either. She's, I guess,
and
she's
making them
bi.
out to be a
I remember her.
crazy right-wing radical
Ellen spoke.
nutjob
Margaret
or
Cho spoke.
a
Margaret Cho was
commie,
hilarious. She said she wanted to use
pinko,
the Washington Monument as her own
transgender-loving
personal strap-on dildo.
leftist.
So
You know, it's like
the entire mall in
it
DC
just
was
is.
full, and the place
I don't
just
understand.
freaking erupted. It was hysterical.
Personally,
that
was-
I would blame it on.
That was actually the one march where I actually saw
2016 and
boobs.
after
That's the
became
only
a
time in
really
any gay
big
pride march,
element of
anywhere,
pulling
you
this
know, and I
apart.
haven't been a
I
whole
know
lot of
people
places,
blame
but
Obama and all
between
that. and I
Hartford
struggle with
and
that concept.
I haven't been to
And then nobody
Middletown.
will
This year was
bring
gonna
up
be their
anything
second
to
one.
dive
But
deeper. They
Hartford
just
and
say it.
P-Town and a bunch
Yeah.
of
And
other
then,
places.
But
You
I'm
know,
like,
you had the
there was
in
a
DC, you had the
point
leather girls.
we
and
could
you had
still
the
have conversations
there was
with each
boobs,
other.
but that was-
right?
Yeah. Well,
I believe
that was it.
I
But
believe
anyway,
that George
we had a
Bush
great time.
wasn't
So
a good
things have
guy.
come so
Like,
far
I just
from when we were doing
ultimately
that,
my
and we're at
opinion
Easter, and we
was,
have
you
to
know,
have
we're
this
going over
group.
and killing a
And we
lot
put
of
on some
Iraqi and
great
Afghani
events
citizens.
when I was there
That
at
ain't so
Easter,
hot.
and
But
when
at
I was
the
in
same
high school, like
time,
I
can
said, I
still
wasn't out,
understand people
but I
saying,
had two friends that
hey,
were.
we were attacked
Both
on
had very
9/11.
separate
Afghanistan was a place that was harboring
experiences.
terrorism. And I'm like, I get that.
I
And we can
think
both
that
walk
I
away
didn't
and not
have
be,
negative
you're
experiences
just
until I
a,
was
crazy nut
in my
job,
early
and I'm a crazy
20s,
nut job.
or
and you can't speak.
maybe even 19.
It's
going
really
to the
strange
bar
how
on a
this has
fake
happened.
ID.
It feels like it happened kind of out of
go to the
nowhere.
Webster in Hartford and
Yeah, it's.
stay in the parking lot too late. And, I still, when I'm in that neighborhood, I'm
I think
I'm
you have
on
a
guard
lot of
all the
great
time.
points. And who
I have
knows? I
rocks
mean,
thrown in my car.
who knows exactly when it
I
started?
haven't seen stuff
Right.
like that. I don't
I
think
know
my
we've talked
brother
before about the
experienced too many
fairness
horrible
doctrine
things. I know he did
that they
experience
took away in
some
1987.
bad things,
Yeah.
but again, he's a
Yep.
guy. It's a
But
completely
that's
different,
when I think
different
news
experience being able to
organizations started.
hoping there'd be a guy on here with
Well,
us
now we
tonight,
don't have
a
to
gay
be.
guy, and I should
It's
have
just
asked one of my friends or
Yep.
my brother
and
to join in
slowly and
because they would have a
slowly it started
completely different
building to where
perspective on this.
I mean, go back to like the Daily
Yeah, the
shows
areas in
in
Connecticut are
2004
very
and
different.
2003. Like they busted on each
There
other,
are certain areas
Right.
where
but it was
even the
never
most
like this,
diverse
and it
areas
kept getting
of the
worse.
state,
So
you may
I
want to be a little bit
honestly
more
think an
careful in.
Obama, a
Yeah.
Bush,
And it's just
like
because
I honestly
it is
think
what
we
it
were
is,
headed to
but
where
it
we're
is
at.
way better now than it was
Regardless,
20 years ago.
I do think Trump
I
helped
think we're on the right track. I don't think,
get us there way fast.
I think we will
Yeah.
be better if
But it's one
our
of those things like
administration
well,
changes. If it continues
is
on the
that
path
it's
that we're in,
obviously
if he
bad, but
gets any sort of momentum in this, then I think
can we try and fix
there's
it
gonna
that
be
much faster so it doesn't?
more setbacks
get
unless the
worse.
people that are in the
Right.
positions to fight
Because
these
yeah, like
things,
it's. I mean, even
as
in
long as they continue to fight them, I
2014,
think we're going to be okay.
you could have a
And if everybody
conversation
gets
with
out and
someone who
votes,
was
then I think
on
then
a
we'll be all
different
right.
political party and
But
not. I
if
mean,
things
people are
don't
literally
change in
losing
Washington,
family members, losing
then
good friends, like
we're all
it's-
going to be back.
which
We're
ultimately
gonna
is
step
the
back 30,
scariest
40
thing,
years,
which we'll get
at
to at
least.
the end. But
Everybody,
that's where
not just
that's
gay people,
my
everybody.
biggest fear at
And
all.
that's
of this.
a scary,
Yeah, I
And I
very
saw
do-
scary thought.
that
It's very
said
hard
that
for me not to swear right now.
40%
Yeah.
of
Best I
Republicans
can.
polled
Um,
said it might
Yeah,
be
I know.
time
I
for
see where you're
violence.
coming from. I tend to agree to an extent. I unfortunately think that
40%.
either way we
And
go, we're
that's
going backwards.
crazy
And I
to
think
me.
one of the main
I
reasons.
would go
but I
as
just-
far as
and I'm not saying as much. I mean, that
whether
we
it's
could have
conservative
go 10
or
podcasts on that whole
liberals.
subject.
right,
You
exactly.
said 40%.
I just
I
feel
would
like
add
when
30% on.
You get such division because
Well, actually,
nobody's
no. I
talking
shouldn't say that.
like humans that you just it's
I
mean,
think
I
that
just see scary stuff of people talking
the
about
majority on both sides still don't want that.
the scariest
but
thing
they
I've been
feel
hearing a lot
like
of lately is these people aren't
because
human. I've been hearing that on both
social
sides. It's
media
one of the
and
reasons
the
I wanted to
news
start this
always
a while
takes
ago.
the
It's like I just can't
10% who just want that.
understand that level of
I don't feel like
hatred. And that's
normal
what scares
people
me. And when
feel
you
like
start
they have a
thinking of
voice. They
somebody
don't
as
feel like most
not
people
a
are
human
like
Right.
and
because
again, I'm
they
saying
think
this
of
as
Twitter
someone
and
who's
they
never had
think
to
of
deal with it.
Facebook
But
and
that
they
goes-
think of
That's a lot of
any,
hate.
the news,
Yeah.
and they're like, man,
Yep.
everyone else,
Sorry, I'm gonna go back.
everyone else is
No, go.
thinking this.
That
Like,
goes back. No, I was like,
am I
that goes
wrong for-
back to
you know, being friends
Our
with this person,
initial
they're
work
telling me how
ethic.
evil
I
they
mean,
are,
Right. Right.
Sorry.
and
I mean,
that's
that goes
why, like,
into
oh,
like
man,
how we.
I've always said I
you know
want
what I-
someone who can just
You get what I'm
step
saying
up
here?
Kind of.
and stop all this craziness.
Like it goes
but
back into
I-
slavery.
there's
yeah,
not even
yeah.
a
Like how
person
we
on
make
the
people.
horizon.
Exactly. Like you thought of
Like-
I don't know how you
human.
put the
I
genie
mean,
back in the
and I
bottle.
know
'cause
that
contend
everyone
that
uses the same
you
thing,
got the
like, oh,
most
World War II and
milquetoast,
the Nazis and
bland,
stuff like that. But you were
nondescript human
started
being as
thinking of
president,
somebody as not a
and
human being.
and people see him as
And
a
that's when
divider.
bad things
Yeah.
happen.
I'm like,
And
what the hell has he
like,
done?
and again, I've heard that
Yeah.
on
He
both
hasn't done
sides.
anything.
Here's the thing
Me
about
personally,
Biden
like, I've
too.
heard
Like
people
again,
say,
you know, I
this
didn't vote
person
for him, but he,
supports is a conservative. They're not human.
especially
vice
him. Like everyone,
versa.
keeps like, but
This is getting into a scary
I heard
spot.
people say the same
Here's the
thing about
thing.
Trump. Like
Since
you'd
Trump
say one
got
thing, but then you say this thing, which contradicts what you said
elected,
before. So people
I
are
have
saying
said,
Biden is
"Oh my
evil,
God,
but he's also
Hitler.
a puppet.
He's the next
So
Hitler."
if he's not the one in
A lot of people have
control,
said
how
that.
is he
At
the
this
one who's
point, this has nothing to
Right.
do
you know? It
with
everyone.
liberal,
And
conservative,
I've said this for a
Republican,
while. Like
Democrat.
I don't care if you
It
have
is
Trump in
about-
there, Biden here.
It is about love
um,
and hate, and it's about right and wrong.
It's just party
and
versus
it's-
party. That's
it's
all.
about
it
ethics,
is.
and
Like until someone goes against
there's
their
so
own
many things
party
that are
and
wrong on
gains
so
people
many
from the other
on both
party,
sides.
this is going to a very bad
And at this
place.
point, it is
Yeah.
all about.
I don't know how. I don't know how you
well,
do that.
I'm a Republican, so I'm
Yeah.
going
How
to
you
fight
do
you
that.
on this, and I'm
a
that shit
girl
doesn't
I
matter.
talked to
Let's do
was a
what's
martial
right.
arts student, but
Yeah.
we became became
for the
friends
world and for
with the family and
humankind
stuff
and
like that. And
for the future.
we've
and
talked politics a lot.
not
I actually
worry about-
invited her to come tonight.
Like sometimes
she
you need
was
to set
busy.
aside some of
And,
your views to make
I said this to her
progressive
all the time. This was
in a
back in
positive way
2018. I was like,
on other things.
we've
And
went past that point of no
nobody's
return.
willing to budge.
There's no going
And
back.
And
Like,
I'm
I want it to, but we've
I know
already
what you're
reached
talking
where,
about.
like, it's
I
gone
don't
too
care if
far,
you voted for Trump.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
and
Doesn't
which
bother me.
ultimately
for you.
scares the hell out of me.
If
And
you're,
did you ever
money's-
watch Bill
it
Maher's?
doesn't matter. But if at this point you
I don't watch
still
his whole shows.
support
I just watch like
what
clips.
he's done through
Mhm.
building a wall,
But
through
he
the
had a couple things
coronavirus,
talking about the 2024
through
election.
Black Lives Matter, through not
And
again, not for the fourth year, not hanging a pride flag for June,
if it doesn't go
which
bad
every other
before
president's done since
I
it
don't.
started.
Nobody's
in
going to believe
Washington.
what happens
If you
the
still
left
support,
I didn't
wins,
know that. I
or
didn't
if
know
the
that.
oh yeah. So he
Democrats win.
not once,
They did-
not
they
once
lit
in
the White
his
House.
term have they hung it. What was that?
Violence is
Rigged
going to
election.
I know that they lit
Yeah.
up
Rigged
the White
election.
House in
If
Rainbow, right?
the opposite
Not
way,
with
if
it.
Trump wins again,
Yep, not since Trump's been
it's
in
going to be
office. Hasn't been
violence.
They
anything.
Like, I
haven't
don't
lit
see
it?
it, and not
No,
from
there's no
regular
shit, 'cause
Democrats
he's-
or Republicans.
I didn't know
The
that.
So anyway,
extremists.
I didn't hear that.
Mhm.
Either side, the
So,
extremists, and then
I
again,
think that
the people
I totally
on
lost
that
my
side are going to
train of
feel
thought
like they
here.
have
No,
to go.
and I'm actually, Jen, I hate
Bill
to say,
I know
like,
you don't
I
want
could
to
talk
talk
to
about
you
this.
all
thinks
night
that this
about
shouldn't
this
be
stuff.
happening. It's like, no,
I agree with
most
a lot
people
of what
don't
you're
think
saying,
this
but,
should be happening.
we have about, I wanted to try and keep it around
Right.
45 minutes.
Bill
but I
Maher
know,
says it all
you
the
know,
time.
busy
I
lives
think
and
I've told
stuff,
you about
but
my feelings
there's
on Bill Maher. I
two
agree with
questions
him on like
and,
90% of the
that
stuff.
I really want to make sure I hit.
I also
And
think he
Melissa
seems like a
kind of
jerk.
brought it up a little bit.
He seems like a
and,
snob, but
this is
I
where
agree
I
with him on
am
almost
going to play a
everything.
little bit of the devil's advocate
But
because
he says it all
one
the time.
thing
He's
I
like,
feel now
Twitter
that
is not
because
the world.
people are so divided.
It's not a
if
real place.
we
Like,
get the feeling
don't
that
think
you
that
aren't-
is
If
what
you don't
most
agree with me
people think.
100%
Just
on
because that's the only
everything,
thing you read when you
you're
go
my
online.
enemy.
Right.
And the first time I really
Well, that's
experienced
the same
this was
thing, you
someone
know,
who was
that you
really
mentioned
pro-gun.
about everybody has a Trump
I'm
flag,
not a
so
big
how did
gun
Trump
person.
lose?
I did
Like,
just get my pistol permit, and I've been
That's
talking
not
to
the
Jen
world.
about it.
Yeah.
That's
She's
your
been giving me
neighborhood.
all the tips on how
That's
to
your,
get
that's
that.
your, you
I'm
know,
not a big gun guy. I
little
wanted to get
nook-
one
little
because of the
nook
crazy
the
times,
world.
and
It's
for
not
a
the
self-defense
world.
instructor, I wanted to
Yeah.
start
It's the same
learning
thing.
that
It's
so I
like
could
people
then
start
teach it to
to,
people.
you know, believe the hype.
Because I think it's an important tool for
Yikes.
self-defense, obviously.
And that's why
But
I hope that
I remember talking to someone who's very pro-gun. And I was
I
like,
hope
yeah,
that
you know,
we
I
get-
think we could do something to try and keep it
I
out of
hope
people's
there's a
hands. I'm sure we
Republican
could figure out a way.
who
And I was
takes
anti-gun.
over.
I hated
Only
guns.
because,
I wanted no one to
again,
have guns.
I
I'm like,
personally don't
no, I think
really care who wins.
I don't
'Cause I
think
think we're
I
leading to the
personally
same
don't think
place.
assault weapons
If
should
it's Trump
necessarily
or
be
if
banned,
it's
but, like,
any Democrat.
I said maybe we can start talking about
But-
stuff and try to get it safer. And I was anti-gun.
I don't know.
Because
I don't see
there
any
was one
other-
thing I
I
disagreed.
think even
And
the politicians have gotten the idea
you were
like I
talking
have
about
to
people
I have to
who-
appease the crazies.
you
to get
can't
the
get
vote.
fired for being you know, in the
I don't know.
community. And
Maybe I'm wrong,
totally
but I said
get
the same
that.
thing
The
about
only thing I think
like with the left.
that-
Like, does it matter if
it's hard for me to like
Biden or it's
fully
this person
accept
or
that. It's
that
like,
person?
well,
Like anyone
what's
who's
the rule
Democrat, is,
that
as long as
says
it's not Trump.
they fired me because of this?
You
Like they
know?
would have to have
Yep.
proof,
And
right?
even on the right, I mean, no one's going to be like, oh, well, it's
Because let's
Is that-
say
so then
I
it's
don't
like
know.
don't ask, don't tell.
who's
almost.
another Republican
Yes.
like
Well,
possibly run?
So they
Tucker.
had to prove that
Who?
Ron
you had to
DeSantis,
prove that you
Tucker
were fired
Carlson,
because you were gay.
Oh,
Ron
So
DeSantis.
I think
That
in order
guy's-
for that to happen, like
well,
say
whatever,
that this
that
thing
guy's
was
an idiot.
passed, and
I
in
hate
order
that
for that
guy.
to happen,
Yeah, I know, but his polling
you would
numbers
have to
aren't
bring
bad.
that into your workplace.
Yeah,
some
but
way
again,
in a
he's a
negative way.
divider or whatever.
So
Oh,
if
all right,
you
let's
got
use
in a
Ron
fight
DeSantis.
with your partner,
I don't know
Yeah.
too much about him. I know a lot of people hate him, but
and you brought that to work, and that fight continued,
all right,
and it
that's
affected your
fine.
work,
He's not Trump.
and they could fire
Like,
you.
he's
for
not
it.
just gonna.
They couldn't. They couldn't. I don't
know,
think that even if
maybe,
that had
because then,
passed, that they could just
again,
fire
people-
you because of your sexual orientation.
Most
or your
people run
sexual
for
preference,
politicians
whatever
want
it
to
is
be
you wanna call it.
popular,
I think that it would
Mhm.
actually,
so they start
in
talking
order
the
for that
shit,
to be legally,
and then everyone's chanting for him,
for
and
them
they
to be able
feel
to fire you, it
good.
would have to affect your
Yep.
job in some way
The
or another.
president of the
Which
United
could be as
States should be
simple as,
kind of
I got in a
liked
fight with my
by
girlfriend last night,
the majority of people.
or we broke up
I want a
last night, and I
president who
come in and
people
my
are like,
eyes are
"Eh,
welled up
all right,
disaster,
Yep.
and
Do your
I am
job.
Yeah, he's
groggy
doing his
and I'm
job.
slow, and I'm
He's
not
not
I don't
producing
agree
the
with
amount of work that
everything, but
produced
I
usually.
agree with some
Yeah.
things that he's doing, and
It could
If I ran for
probably be as simple
president,
as
I
that, but
wouldn't
I don't
have
know
Twitter
because
or
I'm not
Facebook.
an attorney, I'm not a
No.
lawmaker.
yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
I don't know.
Like,
what
these
made me
days, how do
think
you
about
get your
that
message
is,
out there
and this
without
was
it? I
a
don't
couple
know.
years
Because
ago.
kids don't watch TV
Um,
anymore.
And it just
Yeah.
happened that during the
Yeah.
time
Commercials are.
when I hire people, it's mostly
True.
people
I
I've
just-
known for
I
a
just
long
don't know how you
time,
would
and
do
I've
that.
seen them and stuff like that.
or
and,
have
I
it,
understand
so
your
I'll
point.
be looking
Yeah,
at a
and
group,
just post
you know,
it
1,
on
2, 3 people
the
for
main
like
stuff.
a year and a
Right.
half.
Mhm.
Actually,
Right.
kind of
Because,
to go off
again,
the
with
subject,
what I do,
when I was talking
They
with
have to know. They have to be part of my program.
the
and the
kid
school
who works
to
for
then
me
be
as a
instructed.
teenager, and the one who was
I was
saying
looking
about
at 2 people,
social
both
media.
females,
I was telling
one
him
was
how
a female and was transgendering.
I was
to me,
watching.
Right.
I was
And
watching an
considering
ESPN
thought they were
documentary
very good.
recently
I thought
about
they'd be a
Michael
good
Jordan,
instructor. So I was thinking of the
Mhm.
two of them.
and
Ended up
and they were
going with
talking
the
about
other
how
one.
Michael Jordan.
But I thought
back
to
then
myself, there was a point where I was
like
kind of
these
nervous.
celebrities
Like,
back in the 90s
what if
and 80s,
they
like they
think
seemed
that's
larger
why?
than life.
Right.
Like everyone
And
was
let's
like,
say
oh,
I
and
was
you don't see
had those
that
two
as
people.
much
What would stop
nowadays.
that person
Right,
from saying,
right.
"Oh,
Well,
Why?
because
they just
Because
didn't
now
pick me
everyone
because
knows
I
everything
was
about your life, so you don't see.
transitioning because
Like-
I
Like
was
this
that
mystical
like
figure.
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
can't prove that I
you're-
didn't.
that
I mean, I
word
could say like,
super-
"Hey, I
larger
only was
than life
thinking of 2 or
superstar.
3
Like,
people, and you were
you
one
don't
of
get
the
those anymore.
200
That
people I
doesn't
know."
exist.
Yeah.
But you
I
didn't
do
pick me
think
because
that
of that. Like,
if some,
what's
you know,
my
if
proof?
celebrity
for
people
not
figure
doing
that
that?
out,
That's where
like, hey,
that's
let me
where
be elusive,
gets-
not
To me, I think is
just
a tough
out there.
thing.
They
Well,
probably get more fans
how-
because
Right.
I obviously
They could.
so or the law.
and
Yeah, you should
what
get
made me
fired
think
for
of that
but
was
what stops
apparently
people from then
they-
suing
have,
companies?
have
and
you ever
suing-
seen
just
the
saying
documentary The
that
Last
is why you're
Dance?
firing me?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't because your
I've-
job.
I've
was
watched it
bad. No,
twice.
it's because I
It's
can.
fantastic.
And that
It
is
is.
what's really hard about
And,
being an employer, especially a small business
They were
owner.
talking
And
about
I
somebody
did
who's
retail
running
management for years,
for
and you
a
have to be
political
really careful
position
about
in
the
Chicago,
relationships
and he
you
was
have
like the
with your
first black
employees
guy to
and what you say and how you act.
run.
And I was out to all
And
my employees when I ran, and I ran a retail
Michael
store
Jordan
that,
didn't really come out
for a
and
very big
support him.
company.
Right.
And
with
apparently he said to his mom,
big
because his
company,
mom's like, oh,
and
you should support him. And he's
I
like,
had to be careful.
Mom, you know,
And when my
Republicans
employees would say
buy
Facebook
Nikes
friendly,
also.
I wasn't
And I'm
friends
not
with
saying he was
any
right
employee
for
on
doing
Facebook.
that. Like,
And
oh,
it wasn't
but at the same
because I wanted to
time,
pick or choose.
like,
or didn't
well,
want to be
maybe
friends
he's the
with
type of
certain
person
people
who's
or
like,
whatever. It was,
what is-
I'm not going to mix
what does my opinion
work,
matter?
business and
Right.
pleasure.
I'm just another
I didn't
human
go out
being
and
like
hang out with
you.
my
Like,
employees, which
if
made
I
me
go out
not
there and
as
say, yeah, I like
popular
this
of a
guy,
manager as their previous managers who would go out and
you're
party
just-
with them.
if you're the
But
type of person
you
who's
have
just
to
going to
draw a
vote for a
line.
guy because I
So
support
you
him.
not picking
Right. That's
the person that
problematic.
was trans
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
nothing to do with
Yeah.
personal
But,
No, I-
things. It had to
I
do
didn't
with
totally
skills and
agree
who
with
you
that
felt would fit
statement,
best in the
but I
job.
totally
And as
understand
long as
being
you,
politically aloof.
as long as you didn't
Yeah.
treat
Like as a person
one
who
different
has
from the other during
some
training
reach to
or
human
while you were
beings,
vetting them,
unless you're
then
super
there's no
political
reason for you
active
to,
and you
in my opinion,
Yeah.
no reason for you
really
to worry.
dig at issues and you
Yeah,
really
no,
talk
I
about
honestly
them,
was just
just
the way I do it is
picking a
very
guy.
different than most places, obviously. But
Yeah.
I was like,
to that.
you know,
There's
I mostly tell people months
bet you
out,
see
like,
that.
hey,
I
you know,
understand
would
it's
you
about
ever
getting
be
votes,
interested
but-
in doing something
Yeah.
like this?
I bet you
So I basically
secretly
just
there's a
talked to
lot
both
of
them like
famous
that.
people and stuff who are like,
And
"Man,
you know,
just
one
don't
got a
ask
little
me that
busier,
shit."
wasn't there as
Right.
much. The other
Right.
one
Like,
was
Yeah.
but if they don't,
consistent
then
all the time.
some
I
of the
thought
fans now,
both of them.
I just
The-
ultimately, I
The person I
ultimately
didn't
think
pick, they
that
would probably
they would
also
have
be a
more
good instructor
fans
too. But I just had to go with what I
if
felt
they
was
didn't.
better.
because I think again the
And
majority
again,
of the people
I also
want
don't know
someone who's
anything
like,
about that
look,
girl's personal life
I'm just
either,
an entertainer.
right? I've never
You
seen
don't
a
have to
boyfriend
listen
or
to
a
me.
girlfriend.
Do
I don't
what
know.
you
And like
think.
you said, I don't care. To me,
Like
I don't care.
I think
Right.
we're
I don't
at
care
that
about the
point
person
in the
like on that
world
level.
where
You're there to do a
that could
job.
work.
Go ahead,
And
where
that's
Melissa.
That's
almost
another reason
every
why
time
I'm
no,
not.
before that,
it's
it went.
game.
Yeah.
Now, do you
That's
remember
another
that
reason why I'm
MTV
not
campaign a long
friends
time
with my
ago,
students
Rock the Vote?
on Facebook,
Yes.
except for
And
my
that
business
really
one. And it's not-
wasn't, it was
my students are great, they're
apolitical. Now,
great people,
certainly,
but
you could make
I-
a
it's
decent
kind of like,
argument
like it's
that
just
it's
your
on MTV. It's
your
aimed towards
personal
young
life
kids.
and
We
you
all know.
it's
But they never came out and
I
officially
do
said
think as an
anything. They
employer,
just
like
said,
they
"Go vote."
shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You should have
Right.
that
Now,
separation.
was there a
when you
hidden
see people
agenda?
at work,
Sure, we
but
had that argument,
not
but it
necessarily
wasn't
know everything
outwardly
about them because that
explicitly
shouldn't
spoken.
matter
It was,
on that
guys,
level.
this is a democracy. We need to get out and vote.
But yeah,
It
that's
wasn't saying who
that's
to
the
vote
only
for.
thing I
It wasn't
have
saying who I endorse.
And I'm not
I
saying
really
it's
remember that campaign.
bad because
looking
I
back
honestly
on
would
it,
still
saying, that
obviously
was
vote for
really
that and be like, yeah,
interesting how it was
they should
apolitical.
be something if you fire them for that.
Explicitly.
Because the way I always talk
Yeah.
about it, and Melissa
Might have had a
remembers this
hidden
from
message,
martial
but at the same
arts,
time,
there's always going to be a
it didn't come out
downside
and
to
say,
something.
vote for
But
Clinton.
the good greatly outweighs the
South Park
bad.
had
So
a,
the few cases you're going
episode
to
on
get
that.
from that, you're going to get a lot
did
of
they?
cases that
Yeah.
like,
It was
yeah, you know,
and
people
Puff Daddy
did
was
get
in
fired
it,
because
and
all
that
of a
was
sudden
back
they were
when they did the vote
no
or
one
die.
knew, and then it came out.
Okay.
And they got
Vote or die
fired. Like
campaign.
you're gonna help help
And,
more people than hurt.
Stan, they
But some
they
people are
need to
still
get a
going to
new
small business
mascot
owners like,
for the
oh,
the
well,
school.
he said this, but I think that's going to be
And the mascot
much
was
more rare.
a turd sandwich or a giant douche.
And that actually is also
because it was the
why
2004
and I-
election.
it was kind of surprised then you hadn't
And
heard this, the
Stan
whole
was
cake
like,
thing.
well, I don't want
Yeah,
a turd
I am like,
sandwich
what the
or a
hell's the
giant
cake thing?
douche.
The wedding cake, Melissa, you heard it.
So they
Uh-huh,
kept
yes.
trying
It was
to
a couple
get
years
the
ago.
vote,
There was
and
a-
Kyle,
There
who
was
for
more
the
than that
giant
occurrence
douche,
though. There was like quite a few.
was like, you have to vote.
Oh,
you
there
have to
was,
vote. And then he
happenings,
started
I think,
voting and writing down
where
turd sandwich.
people were
And
like
Kyle's like, what are you
refusing
doing?
to do
I'm voting. He's like,
LGBT.
no,
wedding
dude, don't vote
cakes.
for that guy.
Yeah.
He's like, so you just
Because
want me
they
to
don't
vote for
agree
your
with
guy?
their
Yeah,
views.
right? Exactly.
Which
exactly.
I
Not
don't
for
agree.
And then Stan
Yeah.
would vote for
Not
the
for
Puff
nothing, but if
Daddy,
you don't want to make
who
my cake,
literally
I don't want
said,
you to make my
vote or
cake, and I'm
die.
not
It's
going
like,
to
well,
give you
now
my
you have
hard-earned
to
money,
vote.
so kiss
And
my
then chase
ass.
him around and try
I
and
mean,
And that's one of the situations where I think that the media does push it a little
They,
bit too much because it's like they want
South
you to be
Park,
mad
I
about
haven't
it.
watched too much of them
And I totally
now,
believe.
but I've
I
always
know
loved them
personally
because they're,
myself, if I
I don't know. I
um,
think they're awesome.
if
the
I
way
had heard
they
that,
talk
if I
about
there was a
social
bakery in my
issues.
town and I heard that they refused a
Yeah,
couple,
I've
and
never
were
seen
rude to them or
an
whatever, I'm
episode.
like, okay, I'm not shopping there.
I never saw a
Right.
Simpsons
But
episode.
once I
just
make a law that
animated
says
stuff,
you
I
have
never
to do
really.
that,
And people
all right,
keep saying you got to.
I
You got to.
agree
I
that
just
you
never
should do that.
ultimately
But
get into it.
well, what's stopping
People keep saying South Park has
someone
such
coming
great
into my
ways to deal with
school
political
and
issues.
having
Yeah.
kind
I
of poke fun at
skinhead
the whole
and
system.
being
They do. They
having
do.
a Nazi
They,
flag on their car?
they-
and, you know what I mean? Like
I
a neo-Nazi. Can I refuse
think
him,
South Park
or do
Well,
I have to?
is the most
Yeah.
I know
brilliant
it's
show
different
that's
because
ever
one
been
is
made.
hate, and yes,
Yeah.
I
no,
totally
it's
And
but it's
I
but
say
it's
that
not
being
different.
like,
It's,
you know,
it's
even
at
some
that
of the
point
newer
taking
stuff,
away,
I think like it's not as funny as the old stuff, but
and I'll be right down the middle.
they have a
That's at
great
one
way
point
of
taking away your rights as a small
simply
business
explaining
owner to
things.
refuse service.
And
Like that's why a lot of
I
places
don't know,
fucking
just
we have
simply
the
explaining
right to
things like,
refuse service to
and they
anyone we
bust on
want.
everybody.
And
Yeah.
Like
maybe
they
that's
don't
going to go
care.
away. Maybe
They
that's
don't give
not.
a crap
But you're
what
right.
They're
So if we take
one of their
that law away,
popular
that where we
episodes
can
when they
refuse service,
did the
and now you
Scientology
have to
episode,
have
Mm-hmm.
this class
and
full
Isaac
of
Hayes, who was a
diverse
Scientologist, played Chef.
10, 11,
He always
12
did
year
the
olds,
voice for Chef for like the
and you
first
got a dad
12
with a
seasons.
swastika, a shaved head
And
and a
they did a
swastika on the back of
Scientology
his neck
episode,
with his kid
and
in the
he
class.
said, if you do this
You
episode,
can't
I'm
refuse
quitting.
service
And they said, okay.
because now we can't refuse.
And they had to kill
so we
off his
can't refuse
character. And they
service
were
to
just
somebody
like,
that's gay
nobody's above being
or has,
picked
you know,
on.
their sexual preference is different.
Don't
or
care who you are. Like
transgender.
everyone
So
gets
now,
busted on.
Right.
How
Doesn't
can I
matter if we're
refuse
friends
service
with
to?
you.
a
But yeah,
certain-
they
you know,
they
like
did a
it's-
bunch of
it's-
cool, funny stuff on
and
Trump.
that's the only
where,
reason I'm like, oh,
one of the
like,
teachers
But then again, I
was
personally
running
think
as
that
he
a
was
lot
Trump.
of
He was
things,
saying just the
and I
most
know sometimes it
outlandish
takes
stuff.
longer, but when you change
And then at
things
the
culturally,
end,
I think
He
they
was
tend
like,
to
it
stick
basically shows
as opposed
that
to then forcing it. So
he was like,
my
man,
hope
I
is
might
that,
actually
okay,
win. I
you're
don't want to
allowed to
win.
do
I'm just
that,
trying
but
to get pumped.
everyone thinks you're such a jerk for doing it.
And
That
he
no
kinda
one
set my
shops
brand.
there anymore, and then
Yeah.
they realize like, oh, I better
he,
change my
and
ways,
the whole
or
thing
else
was
I'm going to go
where,
out of business.
where Hillary
And I
Clinton
know
was
that would
saying,
be
my
it would
opponent
take
is
longer,
a
but I
liar.
think
Don't listen.
I don't know.
to him.
Again, but that's me not being in.
And they keep telling Hillary like, this is what you
yeah,
got to say.
you're having to deal
Whatever
with
he
that.
says,
You know, I
say,
can be like,
my
oh, you know,
opponent's
give
a
it time,
liar.
but it's not happening.
Do not listen to him.
But you're in the community
And he
as being
comes
a small
out and
business
he's
owner
like,
who,
all right, guys, I
if
got to
you're
be
put in that
honest.
position where you
It's
have to
one
make
of
that
the-
This
decision,
was
what do you
just a
do?
goof.
Go ahead.
Like, I don't know what the hell
I
I'm
think,
doing
like,
here. Vote for,
But also,
vote
like,
for my
like you're saying,
opponent.
like that.
She's not great, but she's better than I
Thinking
am.
like people won't go and shop there now,
And
but that
and she
also
just
like
goes and it pans
you
to her and
as
she's like,
a person who
my opponent is a liar and don't
for
listen
equal
to
rights and
anything.
for like equality and stuff, like it takes those little
That's
moments
great.
of speaking
That
about
show
it
is really
to
good.
those people
One of
that
my
are refusing it to try to
favorite and least favorite
possibly
episodes.
change their mind.
I shared
you know,
this
just
with my
having
sister
that
because
conversation
she's
as to,
my
well, why
sister
don't you
always
wanna
talks
serve
to me
them?
about
you know, like is that like
raising women.
what's the
and you
going
know
on
this.
here? You know
You
what I
have
mean?
3 daughters.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep.
And she's always like, you know, you have to raise
right,
girls, you know,
and
the
here's
right
the big
way
one.
and,
All right,
and
this is the one
feel
that
good
I
about
literally was
themselves, so
thinking
on
of
and so
not
forth. But
asking
we always
because
talk
this is the
about
one that I
the
feel
scary,
that like I don't like having the
how
conversation
scary
because I don't want
social
people.
media
I
is.
feel like I'm
Instagram and girls
everything,
feeling like they have to
right? Like be who you want to be.
look
and
a
stuff.
certain way
But
and
I
show
do
certain
know
things.
that if I say
Yep.
this,
Yep.
and I've heard it from people, not from me, hearing it from me, but be like,
And
oh, well,
how
you're
it
against our
scares the
cause.
crap
then.
out of me.
It's someone who is
They had a
biological
episode
male who's
where
transitioning to a female.
they were
being
talking
able
about
to compete in
Instagram. So
sporting
one of the
sporting
kids
events against
had a crush on
biological
Kim
females.
Kardashian
What's
because
your
he's like,
thought
oh,
on
she's so
that?
beautiful. And the other girl's like,
Melissa, you want to go first?
this girl, Wendy, who's like an
That's tough.
activist.
I've actually thought
she's
about
like,
this quite
you
a
know
bit
those
sometimes.
pictures
like,
aren't
I just
real.
like, 'cause
Like,
it's
they're
just
photoshopped.
it's tough. It's tough
Like,
to
that's not,
I I don't know,
real.
for
He's
me
like-
at least, because I think
He's like,
that
I don't
they're-
believe you. And then one of the other girls wanted
I don't
to
know.
date
Maybe
him,
I
and
just
he's
I
like,
need
she's
to
ugly.
educate myself a little
So
bit
what
more
are you
as
talking
to
about? She's
what
ugly.
like
He's like, she doesn't look
biologically
like Kim
goes on
Kardashian.
and what changes.
So the
because
girl
I think that
put
there
an
is
Instagram
a
photo of her and
physiological
photoshopped it,
difference,
and the kids
you know,
started dating her.
especially with muscle, with males and
And
females.
all the boys
and
started
if you're
dating these girls,
transitioning
and
either
instead
way,
of
like
introducing their
there's
girlfriend,
gonna
they would just show
be a
their
difference. And then
Instagram
there's
photo.
also like concrete differences
so
that
the
are
girl
always going to
Wendy
be there.
is
Yeah.
all mad about
You know
it.
what I
She's
mean?
like, this is wrong. Like
And
girls
so
should
hard
feel like they have to,
to weigh
be
that, and
something they're not.
I
and
really don't
Photoshop
know.
their bodies.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't
And
know an answer.
and everyone's
So I
saying that
played
she's
sports in high
jealous
school,
of
but I did not
everybody,
play
so on and
individual
so forth.
sports.
And she
I
keeps
played team
fighting, and
sports.
everyone's telling her
I
she's,
think in team sports
you
it's
know,
probably
just being
less of an issue.
jealous and blah blah
But
blah.
for
And at
and
the
it was just
end of
big
the
in the news.
episode,
I think the girl
it
was a
shows
track.
the girl Wendy,
She
the
was a runner.
actress
I don't know
girl,
if it's
in the
trust.
library,
She was,
and
but
she's
she did
typing.
track. I didn't do.
And it goes to the computer
I don't
screen
like
and
to
it shows
run.
her cropping her photo.
I don't know who
Yep.
does.
Yep.
Like
And then she
I
just
know I
starts
played
crying,
softball a few
and the
years ago and
episode
just
ends.
you hit a triple by errors and
powerful.
having to get to
It
third
is,
base. I
because
was
it's like, man, like these girls
dying.
feel like
So I don't know how the hell I played soccer
they don't have a
my
choice.
freshman year,
Like
but
you
I
tell a
I
young
only
girl,
played.
oh,
team
this is
sports.
not the
I
kind of
think
attention
if
you
there
want.
was
You don't
a,
want guys contacting
male
you because of your
transitioning to a
way your
female on
body
our
looks.
team.
Right.
On
But
the
then
teams
all
that
their
we
friends
had,
who
whether it was
look
soccer,
like that get the attention.
basketball, or softball,
How do you tell
I don't
a
know that
16-year-old
there would have
girl
been that
that
much
you're
of a
right
difference.
and they're wrong?
Maybe
Yeah.
in a little bit of muscle,
Yeah.
maybe in some
Don't buy
height.
the lie. Yeah, it's going to be
Um,
tough at 16 to do that.
But I think when it
Mhm.
comes to the individual sports is where it's going to make a difference.
I
So
do-
the people that are running track, the people
I
that
don't
are
envy
doing
the kids
shot put, the
nowadays.
people that are doing long jumps and high jumps
No.
and all that stuff that goes
I look
along with
back
all
on
those
when we
individual
grew up,
tennis, golf.
and
Martial
I-
art.
I mean, yours
I mean,
was.
I did
When
wrestling
did
in
you
high
graduate high
school.
school?
Yep,
Like,
89.
wrestling.
You
So
know?
I
and
graduated
we
in
had
98.
girls in high school that
All
I
wrestled.
those
wrestled
years.
males.
Boys.
Like I
Yep.
only
Like-
wrestled females a handful
I
of
don't know.
times.
I
But
hate
that's
to
again-
say
but
this,
that's a
people
weight-
are going
but
to look back
wrestling
on
is by
those
weight.
times and be like, "This
Yeah.
is the greatest
Well,
time to be alive."
Track is not.
True, but if you take, and
Would
especially
not
like when we're
disagree
talking
with
high
you.
school too.
Yeah.
The amount of phone watching that I do, the
I joke
second
about
we
this
have
with
any
some of the
moment
guys
break,
in
everybody.
jujitsu, because jujitsu is like
Yep.
wrestling.
I'm like, this
Uh,
is an existence I
that-
would never want to
You got
have.
kids who are like when
Well,
they're
yeah, but
17,
not even
guys,
that,
17,
just it
18,
was-
19, they're coming
and
along,
yes,
but they're
that
still
stuff
getting
too,
beat by
but
the
also, like-
older guys.
I don't
And
know.
I'm like, don't worry,
I
you'll
don't
get
know.
your
It's
male,
just-
your men,
Not
your,
everything was so
your men muscles soon,
crazy.
or your man muscles soon. Meaning like
And
when you
I
hit
do
around
think
the
that was one of the
22,
times where, like,
20, 21,
you know,
22,
again, when you look
and
back
some
at
kids before that, but like
political stuff that was
your
happening in
strength
the
gets
60s, 70s, and 80s,
a
like,
lot different.
you had disagreements,
just-
but everyone was kind to
When
each
I say
other.
this though,
Yeah.
like, you
Like,
know,
it wasn't
I think
like,
a
oh,
lot of
you're
times,
this
and
and
I'm
you're
sure the person,
destroying our
if
world.
they were
And like you
transitioning
said,
and they wanted to
I
play
think it's
sports,
time-
and I said this,
40%
obviously,
of
I think
people
they
saying,
would take an offense to it, like,
think
oh,
it's
you
time
just
for
don't want me to.
violence.
But the way I look at it, I'm like,
Yeah.
we
Bill
talk about
Maher
mixed
said
martial
this
arts.
on,
There was, and I think still is,
one of his
a
latest
mixed martial
episodes where he
artist
said that he
who
was
was
getting he had
went
his
through,
Uber driver who was
biological
from
guys
I forget
and
what country he
transitioning
said,
to
but it was
a
a
woman.
country that
and I don't even
in the
think
early
like, had any
80s or early
you know,
90s was, you know,
hormone therapy or
somewhat
anything like that. Just get in the
peaceful.
ring and you
Mhm.
can punch.
and then
as
it
hard
turned
as you
into
want. Go
like,
ahead.
you know,
If you're
Yeah.
transitioning,
yeah,
you're doing hormones.
and people fighting on the streets,
Well,
and,
yeah,
like,
but I
killing
don't
each
think-
other
I
on the
think that
streets and
he
everything.
Identified at
And
that
his Uber
point, but
driver
hadn't-
said to him,
Oh, hadn't like started
"This
the
is
actual
exactly
like,
what I
medical
saw
part of it.
before
Okay.
that happened."
And which also it happened.
He's like,
in
the way that
Connecticut, too,
people are
with the
acting
two
in
runners,
America
the
is
two runners,
exactly
they were
the way it
15,
was
like they
right
were
before it all fell apart.
identified, but apparently they hadn't. Because
Yeah,
and
they're
that's
pretty
what I'm saying.
similar.
So like they
Okay.
weren't
Like
giving them
I
hormones.
literally
Okay, but if they're
past
if they're
2024,
so hormones take
it
that part
sounds
out of the
messed up,
equation
and I'm not
because
even
if they're
planning
going from
past that. Like I don't know
what's the right
Like,
word?
FSM
Cis,
or
cis
I
male
just don't
to
see any other way
or cis
around
male, right? Or I don't know what the hell it is. But anyway, they're going from
getting
a guy to
there.
a girl.
This is why I wanted
So-
my other
No,
guest
So
on.
now-
matter
so
what,
now
you're-
2022
Exactly.
might be a
Because let me
little
tell
bit
you,
of
all these labels, I can't.
more
They
mellow
confuse the shit
because
out
it's
of
not a presidential
They're-
election.
I
2024,
don't know.
nobody's going to believe
Yeah.
the election
Well, I
Why
results.
do
just
you
have
have to label stuff? So,
at
but
all.
my point is
Nobody.
if they're
It
not
won't matter
in
what
a hormone,
happens.
so if they're
It
going
won't
from
matter,
a guy to a girl,
how they
their
say they counted
hormones
the
are going
votes.
to add
I can
estrogen
watch
and
every
all that
single
stuff.
vote,
They're not.
and I'm
You're not
still not going to
adding
believe.
masculine
I'm
hormones.
going to
Oh,
say,
yeah.
oh,
Limits
well,
are
they
gonna
made
hit.
him move his
So,
hand, and he had to
I
vote for
get
the
the
other.
girls
They're
that
going to make
are
up
in
all
these track
kinds of stuff
positions saying
to
so
make
we're
it out to
competing
be.
Yeah,
against
but that's the
against
point.
the
Like,
boys. So why do we
that's
even
the
have
point when
girls track
people,
and voice
when
cracks.
send
Why not make it all the
political
same?
Yeah.
leaders
I mean,
on
not that
both
these girls
sides
are saying
say,
that, but
yeah, go ahead and do
I
what
think
needs
it's
to be
very
done.
different in
You won't get arrested.
individualized sports
Right.
than it
You're
is
in our
in
area,
a
you
team
won't get
in a team
arrested. Like,
sport. And I
once
get
people
it
have that,
on both sides. I
green
completely
flag,
understand.
I don't
And
know.
it's probably not very
I
fair to the
said
girls
this to a lot of people, and I think I said it to
have
you
a
in one of
boy
the times we talked.
who's transitioning
The only
Yeah.
straight up
small
competing
hope I
head to head
have
with them.
is that,
Because all the
unlike
things I hear from
the
it, like,
Civil War in the
when the
1800s, like,
runners that
Everyone
they want
has somebody who
every
they
single
know
week.
who's on politically on the
Every
other
single
side.
one. And
And
that's
you
the
don't
thing,
get to
but when I
pick and
say it,
choose
like,
who gets
the reason I
violence
don't
against
want like saying that
Right,
is
because it
I
wouldn't
don't
be
want
that
to make
kind of
anyone feel bad.
organized north-south.
But-
It's
them. Yeah.
It's
neighbor
like,
on
okay, well,
neighbor.
Like you literally would have to be like, if you were on the right or left.
I had
okay,
someone say to me
we're
like, "Oh,
taking
well,
matters into
I
our
just
own
wouldn't want to
hands.
make the person
Like,
feel bad. I mean,
you don't get to
transitioning,
pick and
they're
choose
already
who the
emotional
enemy
about
is.
stuff, and
Right.
and
You don't
Right.
get to say,
now
"Oh,
you're
I
telling
went to
them
high
they're not
school
allowed
with
to
them.
play
We're
the
good
sport that
friends.
they
Don't
love. Like, I
don't
feel
hurt
bad
them."
for saying that,
Yeah,
but I'm
not
like,
that
well,
guy. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
You
totally
don't get
agree.
to pick
But I
family
also
members.
feel bad about now the people
Like,
that
think about how
they're
many
competing against who,
conservatives
and I hate to say this,
and
but like
would have to
might not have
say,
a chance when it comes
"Oh,
to
man,
certain
my
sports.
daughter,
Like
my son."
weightlifting was the big one. Apparently,
and
Right.
vice versa.
they had allowed it for a while. Where
People
like
who are younger on
someone
the
comes
left
in, a
having to say, like,
biological male
"Oh,
is
not my mom
starting
or
to
dad."
transition
Right.
and destroys,
Like,
Right.
breaks all
you don't get to
records.
say that.
So,
if
I'm gonna
if
stop
you're
you
at
real
that
quick.
point where you're like,
It's-
these
I
people
hate to say this.
deserve
I feel bad about
violence,
this.
then it has to be against everybody.
How long have we been
Yep.
saying
And
that?
that's why
Yeah.
I
I
gotta
don't
talk
want-
about it for people to understand it, right?
Yeah,
That's why I'm
I fully don't
hoping
understand the whole
when you
process.
said you have a little bit of
of-
hope, so do
I
I,
don't
because
fully
I'm hoping
understand
they're
it. So
just
when I
words,
have
like they haven't fully
um,
processed and conceptualized what those
people that
words
have
actually
kids,
mean.
if I
Yeah.
when I have friends
But
that
I
have
will
kids
say
that
that
are
I've had
transitioning and I can
people
learn when
who-
I can learn about it, then I do.
Not my close friends, but
And
periphery friends
you know,
say to me,
it's
if
that
it comes down to it,
"Oh,
I'm
I
coming
feel
to you
bad
first
because I
because
don't
I know
wanna
you
do
don't
this
have
or
a
that,
gun
I
and
don't
I'm
wanna say
taking all your
this," and
crap and I'm
But you can't
going
you know,
on my
you
way.
can't always feel
And I'm like,
bad. You can't always
dude,
feel
we're
bad. First
like
of all, these kids have
friendly.
this is not a
Like, I don't
this is not
understand
a
what's going
decision
on
they
right
made
now.
like that.
Like,
This is a
because my
decision
political
that
views
has
just
gone
don't
through a
agree.
therapist, it's
And
gone
they're
through a
like,
family,
dude,
it's gone through
and
so
didn't say I'm
many
gonna take you out. but there was
avenues
a
at this
real
point where
nice
this is
implication
not just a
underneath the
decision that
surface
they
that
made
was like,
yesterday and that you need to feel bad about it.
so
This
if I'm
is a
standing in the
decision,
door, what are you gonna do to me?
and it's
Like,
not a choice.
dude, I don't
It's
agree
a
with anything you
decision
think, and I don't think your
because of
thoughts
everything
are
that's
valid,
going
but
on
I'm
in their
not
head and their
thinking about
body.
killing you.
It's not like it's, oh, I'm just going to decide to do this because it's what I want to do.
Yeah,
What is
that's
going on?
It's
that's
what's
messed up. That's actually worse.
going to
But
make
again,
them
it's
mentally
words.
fit
It's
and
words.
healthy.
It
and
is word,
It's
but
going to make them feel like
that's
a
what
real
my hope is,
person
that what saves
and
it,
feel like they
because
fit in and
whether
what they need
again it's a
to
friend,
do.
but
So
although
the-
most people have a
My
family
point is, don't feel bad because these are
who's
decisions
on the other
that have
side
been thought
somewhere
out,
in their family.
and
You know what I mean?
not that
And
it's
even
okay
if you
to
live up
expect
north,
to
or
have
even if you live
backlash
down
at your
south, like
at
there's still
what it is that you're
somebody.
going to do with your life and how you're going
And
to move forward.
that's my
Like it
only
is for
hope.
anybody, black,
What
white,
saves it
gay,
is when
straight,
people go,
orange,
"Oh
yellow,
man,
it doesn't matter.
we gotta do this to people we know
People
and care
constantly
about."
feeling bad about
Right.
having this
Like
discussion.
it's,
yeah.
but
the
again,
problem. You got to have the discussion or you're not going to learn anything.
I totally
I
agree with
hate
you. I
even
totally
talking
agree with you.
about
But
that.
like when I say
But
bad,
I'm
like
sure in
bad at the
Germany
point where, because I
in
feel
1930s,
like I said before with
there
like
was people
the
who were
gun
like, "Hey, I
issue
know
with
that
that person. Like,
Right.
oh,
I went to
yeah, I
school
agree
with
with you.
them."
Yeah, I
Right.
totally believe
Now,
you should
like,
be
it
whoever you
happened
want
there.
to be
Yep.
and stuff like that.
Yep. They jumped over that hurdle.
And the
But
messed up part
when
too
I
is
say
once
that, then all of a
America
sudden,
falls
well,
apart,
you're
the rest
against
of
us.
the world falls apart.
Like, and I've
Yep.
seen, I personally have seen,
Yep.
and it happened
Because
to
the
me,
bad
but
faith actors
I
who
knew
are
the
leaders in
person,
other
and I
countries
also
are
knew the
going
person they were
to take
talking about. And the
total
person's like,
advantage
oh
of
yeah,
that
you know, I'm
situation.
totally pro
Yeah.
LGBTQ, but like, yeah, no.
It's gonna be-
If you were born a
It's
guy,
going to
no
be
way.
not good.
And they were like, they
Not
hated that
good at
person.
all.
They hated him. That person was against them in
Yeah,
every
that's
way.
why it's just-
They
I
literally,
don't know.
they
I
literally hated all
I keep
anyone who was gay or anyone who was
looking
transgender.
like an eye
Well,
out
that's
for
hate.
people who like,
Yeah,
oh, maybe this person will
but like I was like,
get up
man,
and
I don't
run.
want people to see
And
me that way.
I just don't think
But I
don't
would
think
be
people feel
lying
like
if
they
I
have a
said
chance
that
if they're
from
not
where I
Democrat
am
or
right now. And
Republican.
again, if a
We're not
doctor, someone
hardcore.
who knew about all this stuff,
Right.
I just
Right.
personally,
But then
from
again,
what I know
I
about,
said the same thing about
you know,
Biden.
guys and
like,
girls, and the
even though I
difference
didn't
in
vote for him,
strength,
I don't,
like,
you know,
and Melissa,
necessarily
you remember
like.
doing jujitsu and stuff like
It's
that.
not that
where,
I never
like,
liked him, because I don't
overpowered
even
and
know
it's
what
like,
he's like as a person.
man, what am I going
Right.
to do? Like,
Kinda like-
you know, but I can say the same
It's
thing.
hard
Like,
to even really tell.
I'm
But
not a small guy,
he
but like, if
I
you put
thought
me in
like,
the
okay,
ring
well,
with,
he's going
you
to
know,
be
Brock
more middle
Lesnar, he
ground.
just beats the crap out of me no matter what I do.
But I mean,
Like, he's
it
just
doesn't
that
matter.
much
Democrat,
stronger. And yes, he's
Republican,
bigger,
like, I
but
said that to
that
people who were like,
strength
oh man,
difference
Trump's getting,
from
know,
a guy,
Trump
even in
wants
the
this,
beginning
and
of transition.
I'm like, yeah,
I would think
Republicans have
is
wanted
still
that since 2000. Like, he
such a
didn't make
great
anything up.
advantage that
Right.
He didn't
Right.
create
I just don't
anything
think
new.
it's fair.
There's
Now,
nothing
if a
like,
doctor
I've heard
told
people
me,
say
yes,
that
well,
he
after this
is like,
many
oh, he
years
wanted to
ago,
build
it
the
didn't-
wall.
we can test the levels. Then
Go
you're
back
a
to
doctor.
2004, they were
you know
talking
more
about
than me.
building a wall. Like,
That's
he
the
didn't.
person. It
That
doesn't
wasn't his
matter.
idea.
They're still
Right.
going to be.
Right.
They're still
And
always
we've
going to be
had one.
stronger than
We've
their
had,
chosen
like, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
How
gender.
people
Okay.
In
So
two-
can't
2000
comprehend that.
in
For me,
2004,
I don't feel bad about saying, yeah, I don't
Donald
think it's
Trump was
fair for
talking
the girls
to
that run track.
Jesse
I don't think
Ventura
it's fair.
about
That's an
running with him as
individualized
a
sport.
Democrat.
That kid
Right.
clearly has an advantage.
Right.
That's Jesse Ventura has a story where
But
they
it's
were at
just
dinner and they
like-
were talking to
Just
him,
like there's rules in
I think it was
NCAA
Jesse
where you can
Ventura,
only
and,
play
like,
so many years,
talking to
and
him
sure you
about
might redshirt a year,
running
because
on the
once you get to a
Democratic
certain
Party.
level or a certain age, you can't go back.
You-
There would be people
I-
that would
I've said
stay
this to a
back in
lot of,
college if they
Trump
could to
lovers.
play freaking
I
sports
was
because
like,
they're,
you know
like,
who used to support Hillary Clinton?
then they're at an
Donald
advantage. So
Trump.
Right.
I
Like,
think in
did you
team
forget
sports
that?
probably doesn't matter. I think that everybody, all
Conveniently,
the
yes.
the
Conveniently, yes,
whatever
they
the
did.
sports
He's an opportunist.
thing is in Connecticut
Yes.
that
Yep.
fought it,
And in
it's
my
what it
mind,
is,
a
Title
grifter
IX and
and
all
a
this stuff.
thief.
They all need to
And
reevaluate what the
he'll
sport
take
is that
the
they're talking
dollar out
about,
of your
what they're
pocket,
actually
even
talking
if
about.
it's
I
the
think when it
last
comes to
dollar you got.
individualized sports, I
That's
don't
how-
think it's fair.
I believe that too.
Yeah.
When it comes to team
I
sports,
I
if
think I
it's
said
team
this to
sport,
him.
every
People are
there's
gonna
no
buy him
I
a new
in
plane.
team.
He's
Yeah.
gonna end up getting a new
Yeah,
plane
well,
for
I
free
think that's a good
because
point.
people are
And like
giving
you
him
said,
money.
like just talking
I'm just
about it
like,
and stuff. And I'm glad to
how?
hear that
I
because
just
again,
don't
we
can't
always tend
comprehend
with
the
social
concept.
media and the media in
I
general,
do.
like hear the loudest
I
person.
I always say
And-
this. I do think, and again, both sides. You know how I'm big on that. Like, but it's not so much they like him; it's that they hate the other side.
Right.
I had one of the most hardcore Trump supporters I know, that I personally know, like, distantly, but they said to me, I mean, literally again, flags, everything.
Yep. Yep.
Say to me privately, yeah, I think the guy's an effing joke. But at least those people hate him and I'm getting what I want. And I get it. I get it. I get if someone on the left said, you know what? I don't agree with AOC, but man, I love making those Republicans eat their own words and go
Yep.
like, I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. Because
Right.
I found myself on, again, when that thing happened where someone attacks me because I don't agree with everything they say, a small part of me wants to be like, screw you. Like, but I know that's just me being emotional.
Right. And in the moment.
And in the moment, like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna, and that's why I tell people, like, I don't care how much, if someone on the left did this, like, it's like what in the riots, when I didn't agree with the riots in 2020, not the protests, because the protests were fine, but the people doing the damage, like, that's not gonna make me vote for Trump. Like, I don't like, oh, these people doing something I don't agree with. That's not going to be like, well, I guess I only have this choice.
Right. Right.
Like, but I do feel that people go there, and I don't necessarily blame them. I just wish that they could look back and be like, hey, do I have to love one side because I hate the other?
Right. Right. But I think even the hating of the other, and again, this is just my anecdotal evidence of what I've seen. I will admit that I like to stay politically aware, is framing the other person as something they're not. So calling Biden a communist is the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I agree.
And you say Biden has open borders. Biden wants to take your guns. It's like, can we just start with none of those things are true and then disagree?
Yeah. Well,
force me into the position of supporting him, which I don't on many things, because if I don't support him, it sounds like I'm agreeing with you, and you're not saying the truth.
yeah.
We can't converse because we can't start on the same ground of, all right, let's admit Biden's not a communist. Let's just start there. Nope, can't do it. So then I'm like, then okay, then I'm going to say that Trump is a misogynist, racist Nazi.
Dictator. Yeah.
And then they'll be like, no, he's not. And I'm like, well, that's my opinion. Can't change my mind.
Oh,
Why-
and then they'll try and say how he isn't. It's like, well, you're not trying to listen to me when I say, like, again, all facts have gone out the window a long time ago, but it's the communist thing, which I'll admit I'm a little ignorant when it comes to even what the meanings are, but it seems to me that a lot of people are putting communists and socialists or democratic socialists all in the same arena when it's really a very different thing.
Yes. and it's used as a cudgel to get those people to say, I'll vote for this guy because I don't want that thing. But that
Yeah.
thing isn't going to appear. Nobody's coming to take your guns. Nobody's coming to bring communism. Nobody's opening up the borders and letting everybody run wild.
Yeah.
How can we start a conversation when that's what you believe about somebody that clearly is not believing those things? Is very difficult for me.
Yeah.
How do I even have a conversation? We can't have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, like, I mean, I know we're doing this on tape, but what annoys me is that even in private, people can't say something, you know, because they feel like, oh, I can't go against my team. You know, our whole culture in America has been leading up to that forever. It's like, you know, a Red Sox fan and a Yankees fan. A Red Sox fan can never admit, oh, Derek Jeter's a good shortstop.
Yep.
Like, no, of course he's a good shortstop. He's one of the best ever. Like, doesn't mean I have to like the Yankees.
Mariano Rivera is the man. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And I'm diehard. Would like to see the Yankees never win a baseball game again. Red
Yeah.
Sox.
When I was watching sports and I was, you know, in my teens and later on when I was big on the Red Sox, it used to always bother me when Red Sox fans would say Yankees suck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they don't though.
And they will
They're actually the most dominant franchise in all of sports.
right. Exactly.
So I just felt like an idiot if I said Yankees suck. I could say I want them to lose and I want the Red Sox to beat them.
I hate them.
Yeah, but they don't suck.
But you know, unless your definition of suck is just a playful, you know, little wistful thing of just saying something to hate them.
Yeah.
But the actual phrase itself is like, oh, that's not at all true.
Seth Meyers had this on SNL. Seth Meyers did this skit with Derek Jeter on Weekend Update. And he was a Red Sox fan. And he kept saying, like, you suck. And then finally Jeter's like, look, Seth, what can I do? What can I do to make you happy? He's like, can you come play for us? He's like, nope. And he's like, you suck.
Totally true.
You know, speaking, this is one of the last things I'll say because I got to get going just a little bit. But man, speaking of the whole everything's political, I like Seth Meyers. I like Jimmy Fallon. I like who's the other guy? Stephen Colbert. I can't watch late night shows anymore.
Yeah.
Only because it's all political. Like I just want to watch something that doesn't talk about politics.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like every episode, it's nonstop Trump or whatever. Like it's just, and I hate that because I loved late shows.
Yeah.
I always used to watch them or watch the clips. And I loved watching Jimmy Fallon's monologue. Stephen Colbert, I think is like, I think he's such a smart guy.
Yeah.
And Seth Meyers, his he does this bit that he's always done since Weekend Update. It's just so good, but it's all about Trump for 6 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, one of my favorite lines, someone was talking about Johnny Carson and how Johnny Carson never got too political. And apparently Johnny Carson said like his idea was people watch us so they go to sleep in a good mood.
Right.
Like that's what they want. They've dealt with stress all day. They just want to have a couple laughs and be in a good mood when they go to sleep. Now, that being said, Seth Meyers, Stephen Colbert, they should do whatever they want with their show.
Mm-hmm.
I personally won't watch it because I just don't want to get in a bad mood.
So I know you got to go, but I've been dying to ask you. So on this theme, you're now watching Kyle Kalinske.
Oh, yes. Okay. I will talk about Kyle. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
I've watched him for years.
Yeah. Okay.
He's, again, there's plenty of things I disagree with him on from like a policy. Well, I shouldn't say disagree, because when it comes to any policy, I mostly can look at positives and negatives from. So there's things that, I mean, you know, again, he's for free college. I'd have to get into a more detailed conversation of what exactly do you mean by that,
Mhm.
and how are we going to pay for it, and which colleges are free, and so on and so forth. My biggest fear when it comes to free college is, are the colleges they make free going to become the new high schools? Where now for jobs, they're like, well, you just went to the free college. And I could be wrong, but it's not so much like even taxes to pay for it. It's more like, is it going to become a non-existent thing? And then taxes are just paying for people
Like
to
an
get that.
extended high school.
Yeah, like it's an extended high school. But anyway, but Kyle is, I think he's from what I've seen and what I've watched, I think he's the most moral person out there. Because even when they were trying to when they banned Trump from Twitter and they were banned Alex Jones, he was on their side.
Yep.
He said, I hate them. I hope nobody watches them. But once we start banning people for saying things we don't like,
Where's it
it's a
stop?
slippery slope.
Yep. And now we're burning books again.
Yep. And he said that on a bunch of different things.
Yep.
I also like when he says, I mean, he was talking about the Hunter Biden issue recently.
Yep.
And he was saying, like, you know, if all the sex stuff, unless it's illegal sex stuff,
Right.
like, I don't give a shit.
Right.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, why
Like,
does it matter?
Yeah. Why does it matter? If it's something that he did that took money from another country and from a political standpoint did something, yeah, it should be out there.
Mm-hmm.
And but he also says the same thing about Trump. And I think he said that about the recent, the recent thing they were saying that the Republicans do the orgies and cocaine parties.
Yeah. Madison Cawthorn. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was like, I don't care if they do that. Good for them. I don't give a crap.
Right. Why does it matter?
Yeah. And I always said that too, like with Trump. Like, I don't care. Like when they were trying to say, like, oh, he slept with a porn star and he cheated on his wife. I don't give a shit. I care that he keeps lying openly about it because it shows that he's a liar.
Right.
But I wish
whether he paid $130,000 out of his campaign funds to pay her off,
Yes.
That's a deal. Yep.
That's a deal.
Yep.
But
Agreed.
for him having sex with a porn star, I actually said this to my dad. I was like, this is what he should have said. Either I'm not commenting, or yeah, I'm Donald Trump. This is what I do. You don't know this by now?
Right. I told you in the van that I grab women by the genitals. What
Yeah.
more do you need?
Yeah, like that's what I do. Like he wouldn't have lost one vote. Not
No.
one.
No. I mean,
And again,
his point of I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and I wouldn't lose a vote is absolutely true.
that will be a quote that is studied 100 years from now.
Yep. Yep. In psychology classes, in political classes, in sociology classes.
Yep.
Because it's fascinatingly true.
Yes. And it really does show that, like, in a weird way, it was good back in the day when everyone was like, oh, we got to make sure that they're a good person and stuff like that. But it's also kind of good that we got out, like, it never really mattered.
Yeah.
Never
It's all
really
for
mattered.
It's all mudslinging. It's all for show.
But I mean, it's again too, like, obviously you probably don't want to admit this and embarrass your wife and stuff like that, but I don't think Melania Trump cares who he's having sex with.
No.
As long as she doesn't have to do it.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. As long as she doesn't have to put up with it.
Yeah.
She's
And
fine.
again, I it sounds so wrong. Like, I personally want to get married because I like the person and stuff like that. But some people want to get married because, hey, I want to marry a person with money and they can take care of me. I don't think Melania is wrong for doing that.
Nope.
Good for her. Everyone should get married for what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But I can understand how it's
the other
embarrassing.
person understands it.
Yeah.
As long as it's an open dialogue.
Yeah.
You know,
I just wish that, I would have at least respected Trump if he was like, I'm not commenting on that.
Mhm.
And again, like you said, if his campaign funds paid for it, that's a different thing. Now your
Right.
campaign funds are paying for hush money.
right. Yeah, that's problematic.
You wouldn't think for someone who supposedly has $5 billion that $130,000 would be a big deal.
Yeah, agreed.
Dude,
But it's funny to me that and the problem I struggle with, and you may disagree with me, I see so much of the hypocrisy of mudslinging the other side, and I'm going to frame it as the Republicans mudslinging the Democrats, while the person that's mudslinging is currently doing the same thing, admitting it openly, and
Yeah.
getting votes for it. I'm like, I cannot put that together in my head to make that make sense.
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, I actually have a thought on this. It really comes down to, am I going to piss off people who vote for me?
Mhm.
And that's why I think and again, I say this a lot, and I know you understand it, but I feel a lot of people put it together when you talk about the protest of 2020 and the riots of 2020,
Mhm.
where they're two separate things,
Mhm.
right? Like protests, yes, whether I agree with it or not, it should be a right to protest and go out there and hold signs and say, hey, we don't think this is right. Once you start burning property and doing stuff, well, then you're not a protester anymore. You're a rioter in my mind. But people will say like, oh, the Democrats who talk about January 6th and not 2020, like, why would you do that? By the way, I'm not saying who I saw this on, but I saw you had a great point today, which made me change my thinking a little bit about how one thing is a single act of violence and one thing is stopping a movement. I never thought about it that way before, and that was actually when I saw you write that, I'm like, that's a good point. But
I don't have many, so I'm
yeah,
glad I
no,
had.
that was a great one, because I was like, oh yeah, I never thought about it like that. But still, I don't think that a lot of Democrats called out the rioters enough. Like, hey, look, this is two separate things, because those rioters are going to vote for you in November. And I think that also there's a lot of Republicans who are like, man, January 6th was bad, but we have to kind of make it seem like we don't want to piss you off because you're going to vote for us here.
Right.
And that's kind of the sad thing, which is like, how do you get away from it? Like, you kind of have to kiss ass to the crazies. But I don't know. Again, I don't think it would happen in other times in our history, but I think at this time, you could get someone who talks shit about the extremists on both sides, and you would get crossover people, and overall, you'd get the majority.
Mhm.
But maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
No, I mean, it might be, but wouldn't it be great to have somebody be able to say from either party, listen, there are crazies on my team, and I don't support the crazies at all. I certainly don't support the crazies on the other side.
Yeah.
So why don't we try to come together here and find ways to make actually the country better?
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I again, with news and social media, I just don't think that, like, I don't know. I just have a feeling like, and even the mainstream things, like you would have Fox doesn't want that, CNN doesn't want that. Like, so like, where do you go to get that? I mean, I know I say internet, but I do feel like, I feel like a lot of the non-crazies are so fed up with all of it that they just want to stay away from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like they don't even want to go online anymore. They don't want to watch the news. So maybe we lost our chance.
You know, that could possibly be. It's a good point. And I think that, we can't, getting kind of circling back, we haven't been able to get past the point of just taking everybody and throwing them into a category.
Yeah,
As
I
an
know.
example, I played cards with my friends, and one of the guys goes, "You would never vote for a Republican." And I'm like, I actually have some things I agree with the Republicans on.
Yeah.
Which they don't agree with anymore, but I kind of agreed on globalization and the idea of, let's spread the wealth a little bit here. Granted, the downside is businesses are going to make a ton of money, and I get that in the start, but it's going to take time, but we'll improve everybody's life, which improves our lives.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm absolutely 100% for that. I said, and I'm sure there are other ones, but that's one that comes to the top of my head. And the guy's like, well, you just won't vote for a Republican. I'm like, probably not, but would you ever vote for a Democrat? And
Yeah.
no answer. No
Yeah,
answer.
exactly. They'll blame you for not doing it, but
Right. But they themselves, because they're the smart ones. So, have we missed the window is an interesting point, that.
well, and I honestly don't even
No.
care if someone said I wouldn't vote Republican or I won't vote Democrat. Like, I kind of get that a little bit, only because, well, there's a lot of like key things that are on the Democratic side that I think are good. So even if I had someone I liked as a person, as a Republican, well, it's still these things,
Right.
which I
But I
think
wonder, what do you think about, what do you think the percentage is, just anecdotally, out without any evidence, of the number of voters, not people that don't vote, but the number of voters who would reach a threshold of politically aware, like policy wise, not just, I hate Marjorie Taylor Greene, or I hate, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but actually know the policies. And what do you think that percentage of people would be that are voting?
who know the policies.
Yeah. Right. And just the basic Republican policies and the basic Democratic policies.
15%.
I'm 10 to 15. And
But-
that's what I think is frightening.
Well, I said this to Tiff once because she had a great point about it, but I was like, and again, she could be right, but she was saying like, oh, why don't people research their stuff?
Right.
And, coming from someone like her, like, yeah, she's a teacher, she researches stuff. That's what she does. So I get it. But I was like, well, and maybe I'm wrong, but I was like, a lot of people have kids they have to take care of, and they have their job, and then they have to go home and they have to get stuff ready for the next day. Like, most people only have a small amount of time they can research stuff, which is ultimately why we elect people to do that part for us.
Exactly.
Like, we don't have the time to like break down all this stuff. I feel people do the best they can.
If you do that, you're giving up your entertainment time or your kids' time, or you're carving out and you're losing something else.
Yeah.
Because most people during the day don't have time to keep up with these things and pay attention to them. And so,
which leads me back to the whole fairness doctrine thing when they stopped that. Like, that was the point on the mainstream news, is like, you had to give both arguments so all voters could hear the positive and negatives.
right.
Because again, you go on Fox now, they're going to say, oh, this is good and there's nothing bad about it,
Right.
which is an impossibility.
Right.
Same thing for CNN. Oh, you're going to hear this and we're not going to give you any of the negatives. So if you had that, then people could make that decision for themselves, but they've taken that away. And I don't even know how we get it back, because if you try to do that on everyday things, like especially now, because podcasts are more watched, like how you're going into the whole free speech thing.
Right.
But who knows? Maybe they could find a way. Maybe they could find a way like, hey, if you have a podcast, you have to abide by these rules and say, hey, you have to have this person on. I don't know.
Mhm.
I think
of it like, because I thought a lot about this because it bothers me. Like a PBS without government funding that's strictly run by donations, anonymous donations.
Yeah.
So nobody knows who's who and nobody knows who's getting what, and cap it so that somebody can't take over by sending in $2 million. All of it's anonymous. All of it is money that comes from the people, and it generates a newscast that cares about the issues and cares about presenting things and saying, hey, you know what? This could be a good thing, but here are the things you'd have to give up and sacrifice. And it's okay to admit you still might like that thing and realize there's going to be sacrifices. Instead of, well, there's one sacrifice that you have, so screw the whole thing. I don't care about the other 80% that could help. And because you can't have government run media. You can't have that. Government can't run media. That's for sure.
Well, that's where it kind of comes back to the whole moral thing too. Like, I could be wrong, but I think sometimes people will vote for stuff because it's like, maybe they know deep down, like, oh man, this might help a lot of other people, but it's going to mess with me personally.
Right. Yep.
Which again, that would be
the whole. It's perfectly okay to think that way.
Yeah.
Like part of your thinking process should be, how's this going to affect me? I don't think it should be 90% of your thinking process, but certainly it should be, how's this going to affect me? And am I okay with that?
Yeah.
Certainly should be part of it. Hopefully the other part of it is, how is this going to help other people? And am I willing to give up that sacrifice for that benefit?
Yeah.
That's what I hope people do, but I don't think they do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, it's like, even though we have many disagreements on business and stuff like that, I've always been the kind of thing like, all right, if your workers if you're making enough to where your workers can get paid, their lives can change a lot, but you might not have your third yacht. Is it really like, I don't know. And maybe I'm wrong for saying that, but that's where I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, like how, like, I do think, again, when America, like our morals in America are really like, and I love America for the most part, losing it less and less each year, I have to admit. But if people's morals were more like, hey, what's better for the group?
Right.
How much would things be different?
Right.
Like, hey, man, this might screw with me a little bit, but I'm already at the point where I'm still going to have a good life.
Right. And that to me is where we hopefully can get to, instead of, and again, we've said it a billion times, but social media doesn't allow for that kind of give and take. It creates the dynamic of, you're stupid, no, you're stupid, no, you're dumber, and it just escalates from there into nonsense. Every time I go on a thread and I try to have let's have a legitimate debate here because I know you have some points, it devolves immediately into, you're a communist, you're a radical rioter who wants to destroy the country. It's like, nobody in America wants to destroy the country. Not one single person wants. It's not okay. Some psychotic people, sure.
Yes.
But excluding the psychotic people, nobody is going out. AOC is not in Congress to destroy the country.
Yeah.
You may not agree with what she wants to do to better the country, and that's fair, but you can't paint her as out to destroy the country. That's
well, I say that again for everyone, like everyone on either side, whether it's AOC or this one might get you. I hesitate to say this because I think she's an idiot also. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
She doesn't want to destroy the country.
I don't think she wants to destroy the country. I don't either.
I don't either.
Yeah, because most people why would I want to live in a place that sucks?
Right. I don't think she wants to destroy the country at all. I honestly think, yes, she's trying to get votes. So yes, she's being kind of boisterous and outlandish. But I don't think she's, even in her outlandish stuff, the purpose isn't to destroy the country.
Yeah. The purpose is to make the other side look bad.
The country should be. I struggle to imagine what that is because most of the time it gets lost in the loudness of nothing. But I don't think she's out to destroy the country.
Yeah.
I don't think she's good for the country, but I don't think she's out to destroy it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think she wants her second major thing is she thinks that this will help the country. Her first major thing is I want to be popular.
Right. I
All
think
right.
I think I like my paycheck, and I think I like to do this for a little while.
Yeah.
So
All right. So
you gotta go.
yeah, I am going to stop it, but yes, it was great talking. Let me just, I'm going to take it off record reel here. Thank you very much for coming on again.